I could see that the Empress Dowager was chanting sutras in the Buddha hall. I nodded my head and waited quietly in the courtyard. This Buddha hall, green bricks and grey tiles, green shade and serenity, light breeze, bringing a burst of incense and candles, so that people unconsciously meditation and piety. A few moments later, the Empress Dowager has finished reciting the sutra and stood up. I saw it and knelt down. I see the Empress Dowager's blessed life and well-being. The Empress Dowager didn't make a sound, but just slowly paced to the entrance of the Buddha hall. Concubine, what do you think of this Buddha hall? I didn't know what to say and didn't dare to answer, but only said, quiet earth in the palace. Quiet earth? The Empress Dowager laughed softly. Is it quiet, serene, or clean? I was even more afraid to answer and just remained silent. The Empress Dowager didn't seem to be waiting to hear what I had to say either. She paused, her voice couldn't pick up any emotion. Concubine, the emperor rested at your place last night? My heart jumped violently, and I was busy bending down and bowing. Yes, I am aware of the offense. It is my concubine who has overstepped the bounds. Please chastise the Empress Dowager. Apparently what the Empress Dowager wanted was not this answer. You accompanied the driver all night with the concubine position. Although it is over the rules, it is not a great offense. Seeing that I kept my mouth shut, the Empress Dowager turned her words around. Concubine, the emperor was not in the palace last night. Where did you go? Although I have been worried, but when the Empress Dowager really asked this question directly, I was still shocked. Body a tremor. The Empress Dowager, such a character, immediately found my abnormalities. More firm cold stare at me. I know that denial of the defense is useless. At this time to say that is a crime, do not say is also a crime, cannot be confessed to the Roi Rong is the first one. She and the Wen Lang still have a great happiness, not to be sentenced to death in my hands. Having made up my mind, and being fearless, I bit my lip and lowered my eyes. The Empress Dowager can see my firm, after a while, faintly open, but directly called my name. You child, in the past, I had thought you are a good child who knows the etiquette of the heavy feelings, a lot of things only as I don't know, by you. Just today, only to know you original is also this kind of mind, really make morning home disappointed. I was very sad to hear this, and thinking of the past, I almost burst into tears, but I didn't know how to speak, and only choked out, you deserves to die. The Empress Dowager helped Sister Sun's hand out of the Buddha hall and came to me. Since you are unwilling to open your mouth, you can think at ease in this quiet land. He said and instructed Sun Ma, find someone to wait here, when she thinks clearly, when to call her palace people to take her back. The Empress Dowager then left, leaving me alone kneeling in the courtyard of this Buddha hall. About an incense stick of work, Sister Sun returned and took a look at me. Concubine, you master, slave girl, one more word, out of the palace must be the emperor's intention. Master, even if you say it, the Empress Dowager won't take the emperor whatsoever. To the master is at most a chastisement for failing to advise. Why do you have to be so insistent, and go through the motions with the Empress Dowager? I gave a slight salute. Thank you, Sister Sun, you understand sister's good intentions. Please don't pay any attention to my concubine, and there is no need to have people waiting. Go and rest. My concubine's mind is made up, so I will let the Empress Dowager deal with her. Sister Sun sighed, shook her head, and finally turned away without saying anything else. The night is as cool as water, the hard stone cackling raw pain under the knees, move a more heartbreaking, just grit your teeth, gradually numb, no feeling of pain, only cold. The body of the single garment is far from being able to withstand the autumn night of the slightest cold. I told myself that I must be strong. A few hours, a shake will be over, at least a few days of kung fu practice, of course. Then those weak women a lot stronger. Listening to the sound of more, Chen, body more and more sat up, feel every bone is shaking, tearing the body. At this time, after a night of gloom under the sky started to rain, no wind, thunder and lightning, so noiselessly, without warning sprinkled endless cold, mercilessly demonstrated and exacerbated my helplessness and insignificance. As my clothes quickly became wet, I finally cried out, quietly and wantonly, a weak yet firm expression of some slight resistance, mixing with the rain and quickly drowning without a trace. ### Chapter 23, Hard to Defend, 2, Daylight. The rain stopped, looked up at the gradually blue bright sky. The air has rain mixed with the smell of earth. I do not know if it is not an illusion, actually feel better body some. A jumble of footsteps arrived, miss. I looked at the sudden appearance of the ring pay and ring bell, and was a little confused for a moment, followed by Sister Sun's voice. The Empress Dowager has commanded that concubine you may return. Ringling was so anxious that she wanted to cry out, Miss, what the hell is going on? I opened my mouth without uttering a word when Huanpei said, don't ask questions yet, let's get the lady back. Said with a huge cloak wrapped me tightly, forced to help me up. My legs have long been unconscious, where can I stand steadily? The two of her tried several times, I still sit paralyzed on the ground. Huanpei simply stopped working in vain, and helped me rub the acupoints on my legs on the spot, while Huanling rubbed my hands vigorously. As my legs gradually became able to move, I looked at the sky and hoarsely said, it's not early, let's go. Determinedly holding onto the ring pendant and standing up, I stretched my legs hard and moved out of the Inshu Palace one step at a time, barely taking a step towards the Jinghe Palace, despite the sharp pain from my bones and the dizziness that chilled and burned my body that came with it. To return to the clouds know the court, a few inner courtyard serving the palace maids within the eunuchs are surprised, or ring pays a reprimand, all the people only hurriedly busy, not long, according to the ring pays instructions to prepare a big bucket of warm water. Huanpei test the temperature, sprinkle a few herbs into it, stirred vigorously, which helped me to remove the wet clothes, soak in the water. To slowly heat it back up, Huanpei had deliberately adjusted the water to be lukewarm, but my cold body still felt hot when I soaked it in, and I took a shuddering breath as I submerged my entire body into the water. Taoyuan came in, hesitated or opened his mouth. Master, the Empress Dowager's side of the invitation to peace, is not to report illness, not to go. Huanpei gouged her out, do you think you can go? Peach Cloud shrank at the words, then the slave girl will go and report it. Wait. Seeing Momoyan turn to go, I quickly spoke up to stop it, it's going. Miss. Ring pay ring bell called out in unison. I gasped, I have to go. The Empress Dowager is back from her Buddhist rituals, and coinciding with the little county king's acute illness, how can I not go to today's invocation? No. Huanpei insisted, Miss, don't you want to die? You'll fall sick. I smiled bitterly, it's all like this, I don't care about the extra trip, I'll be back in half an hour at most. I am now at the tip of the storm, I can't ask people to find fault with me again. A few words had taken my breath away, and I spoke no more, only reached through the water and took her hand, telling her I had to go. Huanpei frowned tightly for a long time, then turned back and ordered Taoyuan, add more hot water. Relieved at the moment, I closed my eyes and rested my head on the cushion ring bell handed me, grasping at straws to regain my strength. Hot water was quickly added into the tub. The water suddenly got hot while bringing intense burning pain all over my body, my legs even seemed to be broken. I forced myself not to make a sound, just hold the ring pay's hand tightly, her other hand and ring bell together for me constantly kneaded the leg in the water, tears silently slipped to the ears, I did not open my eyes. After a few moments, my body felt better, Ringling helped me to wash and dry my hair, and helped me to get up to put on my clothes and comb my makeup. I looked at the mirror in the extremely pale self, gave up the powder to cover, no matter how the powder, I'm afraid it cannot cover this look. And then Terinsho Palace has been a room full of people, good thing I arrived late, and not as much as to speak with the others, only in the heart to pray that nothing goes wrong. The Empress Dowager came out, I try to hide to the crowd, and chi and worship, the Empress Dowager, as usual, called up, to give more than the 5th grade seat, I am the newly promoted, have not listened to the training, cannot yet sit. Today's atmosphere is a bit dull, the Empress Dowager listened to Ronwan-yi endowed a few days of trivia, when mentioning my bedchamber promotion, the Empress Dowager's eyes leisurely shift over, I put together a breath of strength, steady worship, but the Empress Dowager did not make it difficult for me, a simple admonition of a few sentences, then asked me to sit down. At this time, I was so overdrawn that I nearly fainted, and just when I had a chance to catch my breath, it was reported outside, His Majesty has arrived. I secretly screamed, but I had to stand up again and kneel down to receive the driver. Above the fifth rank, there were only 4 or 5 people, and I was now kneeling in a very forward position, watching Wen Lang's bright yellow body stop beside me. My son greets the mother. The Empress Dowager smiled, Your Majesty is getting off the court early this morning, quickly sit down. Wen Lang turned to the floor of concubines, All right, all rise. The people responded and stood up one by one. I really cannot hold on, borrow the front and I Lu Ning's body to cover, reached out to help the chair next to borrow strength, do not want to do this move to avoid the Empress Dowager, but cannot hide from Wen Lang's eyes. He helped me up, and immediately found my weakness. What's wrong? The crowd all looked over at once. I knew it was bad and panicked to look at the Empress Dowager, and sure enough, the Empress Dowager was staring at me coldly. I hastened to break free from Wen Lang's hands, but I did not want to make the force at this time simply cannot stabilize the center of gravity, a swaying, but once again by Wen Lang's support. I did not dare and could not struggle any more. I bowed my head and said, My concubine has done nothing wrong, please forgive me, Your Majesty. Wen Lang finally realized something was wrong and gently let go of me, turning back to the main seat and sitting down without making a sound. The Empress Dowager was cold and didn't open her mouth. The deadlock was broken by Rong Wan-yi, Sister, your concubine's complexion is very bad, but is she sick? The eyes of the crowd looked at me in unison. There were searching suspicions as well as disdain, surrounded by a mixture of colors. I just acted as if I didn't see it and tried to suppress a wave of dizziness, pulling out a smile, carefully answering, It's just that I've contracted a bit of wind and cold, it won't be a problem. Rong Wan-yi immediately showed her concern, and opened her mouth in a rather decent manner. It's autumn, and it's cooler in the morning and evening, so sister should pay more attention to her body. Not wanting to be the center of attention again, I didn't answer, just nodded gently. However, there are still some people are not willing to be lonely, a voice rang in the crowd, can ask the doctor did not, who do not know you concubine is now the emperor's heart on the tip of the day did not see the infected with the wind and cold, when the 10,000 million shall not be neglected. Containing a few biting words but from a soft voice, humble tone, calling people cannot pick fault. I turned my head, Qing nobleman Yao Qian, that soft and charming Jiangnan woman. I was not ready to answer. The Empress Dowager finally opened her mouth. You concubine body is not good to be more will feed rest, weekdays there is nothing to do on less move some, exempted from a month's invitation to bed, peace of mind in the Jinghe Palace in the recuperation it. The Empress Dowager paused and added, None of you should disturb, including His Majesty. This word, all people are stunned, this openly caressing and darkly depreciate, in fact, will be my foot confinement, even when Lang cannot visit, for a new favorite to promote the concubine, is really a very heavy chastisement. Wen Lang instantly changed his face, Mother, she. Your Majesty. The Empress Dowager looked at Wen Lang fixedly, this harem matter, I still have an idea. Wen Lang's face was full of astonishment, and when I saw this, I hurriedly stepped forward and knelt down to worship, Thank you Empress Dowager for your grace. I didn't raise my head, not knowing how the expressions of the Empress Dowager and Wen Lang looked, only to hear the Empress Dowager say, Well, the mourning family is going to Sijifan, so you all disperse. The crowd then knelt in peace, the Empress Dowager left, Wen Lang is still in the temple, he did not go, no one present dared to move, are all looking at each other. A few moments, Wen Lang cold face away, and only then everyone left in 2s and 3s. Ziki and Yuan Yen came over and wanted to find out what was going on, but they were all pushed away by me. In this situation, I don't have the energy to make up a reason for them. Huanpei helped me back slowly, and even though she tried her best to help me bear the weight of my body, I was still unable to do so, and within a few steps I was exhausted and in a trance. At that moment a voice suddenly sounded behind her, You are I turned my head and realized that the imperial carriage was parked behind me, when Lang got down from the sedan chair, embraced me, and turned towards the imperial carriage, but my remaining consciousness reminded me that it was a great crime to board the imperial carriage without permission, Your Majesty. When Lang tightly embraced me, without saying a word, will be carried up to the carriage, soon the carriage steadily forward, I was no longer able to refuse at this time, can only nestle in when Lang's arms, feel his warm chest, but the body feels more and more cold. Discovery, I didn't protect you. When Lang's low voice is a bit drifting, I suddenly feel very aggrieved, but even the strength to cry cannot make out. After shedding a few tears, I feel tired, no longer hard to hold on, let the consciousness and all the noise away from me, can fall into the darkness. #### Chapter 24, Towers. I wake up again has been 2 days later, then again when sleeping when waking up 2 days, only gradually get better, the whole body aches and pains for many days. Ring pay Dr. Biggest, half a moment also not allowed me to walk on the ground, and Ring Bell and Peach Clouds take turns to guard me, said to prevent the body on the fall of the root of the disease. When I saw her determined look, I couldn't bear to go against it, so I had to let her. When she was in better spirits, she leaned on the couch and listened to Ringling describe the circumstances of her illness over the past few days. It turns out that after I fainted in the sedan carriage that day, when Lang was so anxious that he not only sent me back to Jinghe Palace, but also personally carried me in, and immediately declared 2 eunuchs, one of whom was also the court judge of the imperial hospital, knowing that only concubines above the main position are qualified to invite them to come. After coming from his busy for a while, the ring pay to Jinghe Palace from the Imperial Hospital is far away on the grounds that the request in the Jinghe Palace to decoct their own medicine, when Lang since the will, ordered to send a large number of expensive medicines, there are missing and not easy to keep, are filled by the Ministry of Internal Affairs at any time. Huanling was full of joy and offered me a treasure, Huanpei said, when Miss is cured, these herbs are still enough to use for a good while, and many of them are rare things that can't be bought with silver. It's kind of broken the rules this time, I heard a little helplessly, so then, who prescribed the prescription? The ring bell is interested, shaking his head, Miss, you don't know. Came an old and a young 2 doctors, the old one, that is, the court judge adults, at first not warm, just look at the side of the young one to take the pulse, prescriptions also do not squeak, full of the official look. Later, the emperor was angry, said that if the lady has any mistakes, only he was asked, he was only then on the heart up, careful pulse, prescription is also very cautious. Later Ring Pei said, this old court judge although pedantic, but also some real talent. I just laughed and scolded them for being unruly, but Ringling didn't care, no one will come to see our rules now, so what are we afraid of? Knowing that Ringling was telling the truth, I didn't say much and only asked, has there been any talk outside in the past few days? Outside the rumor can be lively it. Only the emperor has not come to see it since that day, but instead. I laughed at Ringling's indignant look, what happened? Instead. Ringling bristled, instead, she has favored several young masters one after the other, and promoted them to a higher position, all of them are going to surpass Miss. You little ninny, didn't have to drum up another miss here. It so happened that Huan Pei came into the room and scolded Huanling, who returned, this is how it is supposed to be, it's hard not to hide it from Miss. I used my finger to poke the ring bell's forehead, you silly girl, I'm already at the tip of the storm in this palace, the emperor is doing this to help me, it's hard not to tell the emperor to ignore the harem for me, and go against the Empress Dowager, that's the only thing that is really looking for a way out for me. With this in mind, I asked Huanpei, the Empress Dowager issued a strict decree that day, but the emperor was delayed for half a day in our place, and there were doctors and herbs, so is there any movement on the Empress Dowager's side? Ringmaster shook his head, didn't hear anything, didn't seem to mention it again. I think His Majesty has his own measure, I nodded, and smiled again, then we will live a month of leisure days, which is also pleasant. Day by day, my body is also very good, in the ring pay careful and strict care, finally did not fall what the root of the disease. When Lang really did not come over again, just every few days sent to ask a few words, body can be good, there are any missing items. In fact, the day in when Lang's publicity, the Ministry of Internal Affairs did not how to deduct my share of the palace, even if there is a shortage of what, I did not go back to the Wen Lang, only called the ring bells to make the silver and gold out to fill the degree of use is still secondary, the main thing is to find out which places our money can be opened. Enlisted the hearts and minds of the people can also probe the news, a two-in-one approach. Into the palace when I brought a large amount of money have not been used, at this time there is a use. I read and play the zither every day, or linger in the back garden, free and easy, but also cultivate my body and mind. When I get bored, there are people who can relieve boredom among the servants of Yun Ji Yuan. As a rule, the 5 concubines of the subordinates should be the palace women within the eunuchs each 4, because my inner courtyard in addition to the ring bells already have a peach cloud and Xiaoyong, so the previous promotion of Yun Ji Yuan added some of the palace women within the eunuchs are outside of the courtyard rough, weekdays they cannot enter the inner courtyard at will, and I have been sick for several days. Not to mention the conversation, and even the name of my name is not called. These days have been idle, a good recognition of their names, occasionally chatting with them, at first it is just a formal talk back, and not very interesting, gradually I found an older called Changqing's inner eunuch, there are full of story segments, asked to know that he used to be home to his uncle is a storyteller. Another only 14 years old, called Si Han's courtesan, long and sharp, the mind is also good, last year into the palace after this is a superior courtesan, and then was looking for a reason to depreciate the rough make, the reason is not difficult to guess. There is a called Xiaochun courtesan, even from the capital's famous Jingjing chess hall, last year, the chess hall was seized, she was relegated to rough slave into the palace, Xiaochun played a good hand of chess, I will be exempt from her rough work, often pull her game. In the blink of an eye is October, see the day of the release of the ban is gradually approaching, but I do not want to give up, the first time into the palace of the rusty period gradually passed, all the people are lively, put aside those superficial false love and courtesy, strife also with the dark and dark, think of their own end or to be involved in it, the heart cannot help but boredom. A few maids and eunuchs gradually rejoice, because the 7th day of the 10th month is not only the day of my release from the ban, but also my 16th birthday, they are thinking of helping me to do a good job, to celebrate my birthday, but also to drive away the bad luck and evil spirits. The Jinghe Palace has been quiet for a month, and has not been lively for a long time, so I let them open up, and said that Wen Lang will definitely come on that day. In fact, I can guess their thoughts, always thinking that I can take this opportunity to turn over the favor, I certainly do not intend to this, but in my heart still really hope that someone can come to celebrate my birthday, so also intentionally choose the favorite dishes and patterns, along with their preparations. At noon on the 6th day of the lunar month, I was reading a book in front of the window, enjoying my last day of peace and quiet, Huanpei Huanling and Taoyun came into the room together, I knew something was wrong when I looked at them, and put down the scroll in my hands, what's wrong? The 3 of them look at each other, or Ring Pei opened, Miss, this morning Renshaw Palace side of the piece, the Empress Dowager said that most of the concubines in the harem status is too low, there is no master, she is very tired of everything heart, persuade the Emperor to choose the virtuous to set up a master, but also for the Empress Dowager to share some of the affairs of the harem. Advancement is not uncommon, and sooner or later there will be concubines of high rank in this harem, so I knew that this was not the point and signaled for her to continue. His Majesty immediately chose Rong Wan Yi as a noble concubine, Jing Shun Yi as a Jieyu, and Lan concubine as Rong Hua, and then the auspicious day for the enthronement ceremony. I understood at once and asked, what day has been chosen? Ringmaster spoke sullenly, tomorrow. I was a little surprised, not for Wen Lang so easily sealed the main position, but the rules of my dynasty, the main position above the party has a ceremony of enthronement, although the concubine is the lowest level of the main position, but also recorded in the temple buried in the mausoleum, how will be in such a hurry to salute? At this time the ring bell interjected, I heard that it is the Ministry of Rites said that the first time to perform the enthronement ceremony elected auspicious day, this month auspicious day for the 2nd, 7th and 19th. 19th is the old dowager consort's birthday, not good to perform the rite, if not tomorrow, it is the next month, the emperor chose the next day. Ringling was full of unhappiness. How come all the auspicious days are catching up with the birthdays? I don't know how the people at the Ministry of Rites calculated it. I did not say a word. If it is tomorrow, I naturally have to attend, a single salute to half a day. The evening there is a palace banquet, the first concubine of the harem of Wenlang enthroned. I think tomorrow night he must be beside no leisure. This birthday celebration is considered to be dissipated. I waved my hand and told them to go out, and alone I drifted off, a little aggravated in my heart, somewhat blaming Wenlang for being so eager to make things happen, and for choosing tomorrow. Then a second thought, Wenlang filial piety to the Empress Dowager is not false, but not to only the Empress Dowager's life from the point, the Empress Dowager's excuse is just for Wenlang to find a step only, the ceiling and the day of the day may have long been selected. The 7th of October, is a sunny day. I got up early, gargling clean face, call the ring bell, open the window, look at the sunshine of the courtyard, the heart is not like yesterday's darkness, and even with a little bright, sitting in front of the mirror, by the ringling to help me take care of my makeup. This day is considered a formal scene, makeup cannot be by nature, clothing I deliberately avoided the possibility of collision with the side of the peach, blue, goose and other bright colors, chose a weekday less dressed in green dress, tied with an apricot ribbon, covered with a light green in the ground without trailing outer shirt. Ringling helped me to pull the bun, with white jade hairpin bound. I, according to the concubines of the grade rules, in the jewelry box, carefully picked a small 2 top quality cloud pattern tired silk pearl and jade hairpin, 2 moon pearl hairpin, carefully pinned into the hair, before and after the mirror compared to the picture. This is the first time since I entered the palace intentionally for their own selection of hairpin clothing, although no one cares, but after all, is their own birthdays, and never want to compromise. Enthronement ceremony held in the hall of Qingxian. I see the hour is still early, will lead the ring pui slowly pacing. The palace scenery in January has been a difference in the taste of the autumn of the depression show up, but also caused me to look around. On the way past the Yongxian Palace, see that the palace door has been set up inside and outside the concubines' colorful battles, many palace people busy before and after, just waiting for the sealing of the completion of the Rongui concubine back to the palace to accept the congratulations. I looked at the enthronement ceremony, just a noble concubine, but it is already a symbol of identity, many fancy women, the future, and how many can have the highest status. Miss Huanpei called aside when she saw me a little out of it. Come on, I smiled, there's been a lot of promotion this month, right? Ring Pei naturally know my purpose, detailed to me about, yes, all the service bed are promoted a level, in addition to this seal of the 3, nobleman piano outstanding, the emperor is very like, promoted 2 levels with the Miss General, Han Beauty although not service bed, because of the family brother high. Official position, also with the promotion of the nobility, in addition to the Ming Kai Ren promoted the nobility. I heard that Pure Sheng and Song Bining's promotion was reasonable, but this Wang Yiyao's promotion to 2 levels in a row made me a bit surprised. It seems that although she is superficial, she still has some ability. With a thought in my mind, I asked, where's Yuan Yen? Huan Pei shook her head, Qi Changjia has yet to serve the bed. ### Chapter 25, Towers, 2, to be outside the Qingxian Hall, there have been a lot of people in the January, since I have not seen, cannot avoid the eyes of the crowd. I first went to pay my respects to the newly promoted Jing Jieyu, Lan Ronghua, and has been the same part of the concubines and other people to see the flat salute, and the spirit of pleasantries with the bystanders, and even those who need to see me salute me to be warm to treat as if they are really just recuperating from an illness of 1 month, the mouth of the Empress Dowager's kindness and miss all the sisters of the words. The auspicious time will come, there are rumors that when Lang has arrived, the crowd only then scattered and forest to receive the driver. When Lang seems to come directly from the court, bright yellow dragon robe in the sunlight is a bit blinding, he did not look at me, called up and then straight into the crowd, then followed, according to the order of rank in the temple. Wen Lang seemed to have something on his mind, his head half lowered as he pondered over something. Before the crowd could be surprised, a ceremonial officer loudly reported, "The auspicious time has come." Ceremonial music was played, and all eyes turned to the outside of the hall in unison. I was slower than the next person for a moment, right on the Wen Lang who raised his head. I read a few points of joy from his gaze for a moment, my heart was relieved, and with a slight smile, I also turned back to look at Chen Yanyu. A magenta gown of Chen Yanyu by the Qingxian Hall outside the door and enter, dress on the gold thread woven large patterns and full head of beads and emeralds while she set off a brilliant, hair bun on the left side of the 6 tourmaline superimposed flower hairpin staggered and decorative, the right sideburns is a goldfinch rocking. This party is a symbol of identity. According to the rules, the 4th grade can wear gold sparrow, the main position above can wear step rock, for consort above can wear gold phoenix, but can only be inserted diagonally sideburns, only the queen can wear gold phoenix in the middle of the chignon, in order to show that the position of honorable. Chen Yanyu eyes always looking ahead, full of noble and skillful look, such as the queen of the general steady from the eyes and past, that step rocker only slightly shaking, as that trailing 2 feet behind the dress embroidered with large gold thread peony, outlined her firm and straight back. They all knelt down, the courtesy officer read a long section of the sealing text, and then Wen Lang will be the concubines of the gold book handed to the courtesy officer, and then awarded to the hands of Chen Yanyu. She held the gold book, by the courtesy officer guided by the line of 6 solemn, 3 kneeling and 3 bowing, that is, the rite is complete. I looked at her figure. I do not know whether she is in the heart of the magnificent dream, dreaming of the hand held the golden seal. The body is wearing a big red gold phoenix dress, every concubine's supreme dream, the exclusive queen of the color. Wen Lang got up, stepped out of the Qingxian Hall, has been Rongui concubine Chen Yanyu followed, the people only then get up. As a rule at this time the emperor left, the newly appointed concubines should go to the empress dowager or the empress in front of the salute, but because this is the only master of the harem, it is to share the affairs of the harem for the empress dowager, Wen Lang to personally take Rongui concubine to Renshou Palace. Seeing them leave in the sedan carriage, the crowd then turned to Yongxiang Palace to wait and formally pay their respects to the first concubine of the harem. I greet your majesty, and I greet anti-Rongui concubine. Waiting for about half an hour, Wen Lang and Rongui concubine to Yongxiang Palace. Rongui concubine finally saw a smile on her face, skillfully greeted all the people, said some sisterly love, mutual support of the scene. You concubine is also here, body can be greatly improved. I was unable to escape her eyes, and within a few sentences I was asked about my head. I hastily bowed, thank you for your concubine's care, my concubine has recovered greatly. Rongui concubine smiled lightly and said, that's good, this month I couldn't see you, the emperor was very much in his thoughts. A word that drew everyone's eyes to me and sent a momentary stab of pain down my back. Of course I couldn't say anything more, I could only open my mouth. Perfunctorily, it's my concubine's sin to ask your majesty to work hard. Did not hear the echo, I looked up, but right into the eyes of Rongui concubine, knowing that I could not hide, simply looked generously and put on a respectful and friendly smile, even though I was facing a pair of deeply probing eyes. But only a short moment, Rongui concubine will take back the eyes, face cannot see any traces, warm smile, you sister body is not in the way, from tomorrow onwards will be resumed the nameplate of the bedchamber. Though it is a smooth water favor, I cannot ignore, however, she did not wait for my thank you, then looked to the crowd. The Empress Dowager pointed out that the palace of the harem's errand, and in the future I hope that all the sisters more to help each other. Saying so, he turned his head to look at Wen Lang, who had not spoken, and said faintly, you must all do your best to listen to your concubine's commands. Rongui concubine seemed to be very satisfied and smiled brightly. Wen Lang added, in the evening, a banquet will be held at the Taiping Palace, and he Jiayu and Ronghua, you should also help Gui concubine more in your day-to-day life. The two of them, Jing Jiayu and Lan Ronghua, were very surprised and hurriedly thanked them for their kindness. I do not understand why when Lang so arranged, according to reason tonight's banquet Rong-gui concubine should be the protagonist, hard to pull on the Jing Jiayu and Lan Ronghua in the case of the reason is not appropriate, Rong-gui concubine face did not show anything, the heart must be embarrassed. When Lang did not say anything more, but only said that he still had court business, and then left. I looked at Wen Lang's back, a little puzzled, a little disappointed. The day is nearly noon, tossed 2 hours, all the people have been hungry, Rong-gui concubine quickly with everyone dispersed. This is Wen Lang ascension to the throne after the first dinner in the palace, organized a very grand and expensive, although everyone knows that today's banquet is set up for Rong-gui concubine's enthronement, but everyone cannot give up this opportunity to fight Yen. If the first betting to promote the position is still in accordance with the order of the position, almost everyone has a share. Then the future of the emperor's favor fell on the head of who will be dependent on the individual's ability. After all, only enthronement of the main position, so much the palace cabinet. The position is empty, is really very big temptation. Especially the scene of the Empress Dowager and Wen Lang at the same time, not everyone is qualified to participate, this time if you can win, glory and wealth can be expected. How many lifetimes have only seen a return to the face of the sky of the woman after the death of the red face, no one to rely on, or old age in the palace, or was sent out of the palace, infinite desolation, are examples of life. I look at these wonderful women, or singing and dancing, or poetry and chin, in the name of congratulations, to their own reality, full of proud talent, set off this gorgeous dinner more and more exquisite dazzling. Some regret, do not know them, in fact, how many people bloom, how many people heroic. I remain quiet and low-key in a corner, a little sip of sweet wine in the cup, not hot and not quite cold, although not open mouth but with a smile, always called the bystanders will not pay special attention. I'm like this, not rely on Wen Lang confident in their own future, not completely disdain for the palace is not, but in such a day, there are a few inexplicable high, do not want to compete with these pandering stain their own birthdays. In this way, in pleased to see some exquisite performance, the Empress Dowager returned to the palace in advance. Next, some talent and appearance on the defeat and low status of the women also 3 or 2 retired, I picked up a moment, and Yuan Yen retired together, the two people companion. The time is still early, the moon is also very bright, Yuan Yen and I walk very slowly, rambling gossip. I heard her still angry read Wang Yiyao's bad, laugh at her. Look, you really a person who remembers the grudge, in the future I would never dare to offend you. Yuan Yen blushed for a moment, and then said, I can't say that I hold a grudge, but I just can't see that she's strong and weak, and she's false. My heart moved, remembered that this Wang Yiyao promoted the nobleman thing, was about to open the mouth to ask Yuan Yen, at this time there is a footsteps faster than the 2 of us concubines from not far over, only one person, behind and no maid followed. This is nothing unusual, but Yuan Yen tugged at my sleeve and whispered, it's noble Han Song Bining, that I have not been to mess with that woman, perhaps the heart is still some resistance. I only nodded, did not answer, do not want to Yuan Yen but suddenly opened his mouth to call her, Han nobleman. Song Bining stopped and turned around. As a matter of fact, given my position, she should have taken the initiative to come closer to greet me, but instead, she just looked at us and didn't move. Yuan Yen had already walked over. Noble Han, I seldom see you go out on weekdays, it's rare to meet you, is it okay for us to go on the same road? Yuan Yen was warmly invited and turned her head to look at me. I had no intention to show my goodwill, but I didn't want to put on a show of refusal, so I had to take a step forward. Song Bining bowed to me, her tone formal and rusty, concubine you left the table so early. I looked at this notorious capital city talent and smiled aloud, isn't noble Han the same? She looked at me with some playfulness. My concubine saw that the moonlight was very good and thought of coming out for a walk. I then picked up, it's a lot better than being bored. After saying that the 2 of them looked at each other without words, and they could not help but slowly curve the corners of their mouths. Yuan Yen couldn't stand being left out. what are you guys playing at? Yuer is really great, but Noble Han rarely gossips with others. Song Binding at this time has removed the defense, both are idle talk, naturally have something to talk about, those who climb up and step down hoping to see the joke, why do we have to pay attention to? Yuan Yen high-fived and praised, Your Honor has spoken well. Just as it should be. I said, I've long heard that Sister Song has outstanding talent, and Yuer is fascinated. Song Binding's expression gave a start, fixedly looked at me, contained a three-quarter smile, leisurely exit, you call me sister, but do you want me to call you Yuer sister? I sniffed, and for a moment I didn't know if she had come out with this as a hint or a warning. There was no but half a bit of malice on her face, her eyes could be seen probing, and more wisecracking, Yuer, perhaps we are compatible. I heard since I could not be more pretentious, in that case, today is Yuer's birthday, you two to Yuer Yuan small sitting can be good? The two of them were very surprised, gladly said yes, and said happy, I call the back followed by the ring bell first go back to open, and then with the two of them all the way back to the Jinghe Palace, laughing and joking. Originally my yard people are prepared for my birthday celebration, do not want to catch the palace banquet, only to stop, did not expect me to lead the guests back, because I am not the main seat, not yet allowed to add a small kitchen in the palace, so there is no way to prepare what food and wine. Fortunately, Song Binding and Yuan Yen were both sprightly and unconcerned about this, and decided to use tea as a substitute for wine to talk about their friendship. At this very moment, but someone reported that the Qian Yuan Palace's Chang Yuan seeks an audience, I and the two of them looked at each other, seeing that they were also puzzled, and their hearts could not help but bring nervousness. Chang Yuan came in and bowed to the three of us, slave, I have met Master Yu Concubine, Noble Han, and Qi Chang Zai. Then towards me, he said, Master Yu Concubine, the Emperor said that he couldn't come in person this day, and sent his lackeys to bring a table of food and wine to congratulate the master on her birthday. Then he asked someone to bring in several large boxes of various colored dishes and snacks, and placed them on the table one by one. When he was about to give thanks, Chang Yuan said, His Majesty said that this is not a reward, so there is no need to give thanks. I have to rush back, please enjoy your meal. Said he knelt down and went to peace. The three of us looked at the table of dishes, Yuan Yen was all smiles, Yuer is really blessed, whatever you want, you get. Song Binding faintly said, the Emperor does treat you differently. I pulled them down to sit, it's not what you think. Which is so what? Song Binding lifted her cup, congratulations to sister on her birthday. ## Chapter 26, The Wind Rises, From the second day, all people still to Rinshou Palace, but everyone can see, the Empress Dowager has been in if not help Rong-Gui concubine to establish the authority of the day-to-day minutiae are made by her to take charge of. Rong-Gui concubine is also very conscientious, analyze everything clearly, the answer is appropriate, the Empress Dowager naturally frequently appreciated. In a few days, this to the Empress Dowager will become a form, our Rong-Gui concubine a person in the report back to the details, decide matters, and then order down, all are should be. My yard underlings thought I was born the second day of Wen Lang will certainly call me to accompany the driver, or personally come to see me, and even my heart is this thought, but unexpectedly, Wen Lang for several days did not show up or summoned. Privately there have been many discussions, in addition to ridicule my complete loss of favor, more in the discussion of the situation in the palace now which side is more worthy of attachment. Rong-Gui concubine got the main position, but did not seem to be in favor, instead, Jing Jieyu accompanied Wen Lang more and more. At first I was very puzzled, but gradually, I could see something. The Empress Dowager's mind to support the Rong-Gui concubine, Wen Lang according to the Empress Dowager's meaning of the enthronement of Chen Yenyu, but to stay Ni Luning in the side, on the surface is Wen Lang and the Empress Dowager's opinion is different, in fact, but to the Chen Ni two families do not distinguish between the treatment of light and heavy, such an arrangement, I'm afraid that there is something in the previous dynasty. Wen Lang does not call me, but I cannot wait any longer, this October looks half. Huapei and Niawa annual teaching appointment has reached the deadline. Huapei mouth although not mentioned, but I can see her anxiety, how to arrange for her to go out of the palace. I must find Wen Lang to discuss. This day in the afternoon, I sent the ring bell to find Chang Yuan. Just say I have something to see the emperor, please ask him to facilitate for the pass. I am not far from the Qianyuan palace west of the garden waiting. Waiting for about an hour, see a soft palanquin from the Qianyuan palace out, towards the east, it is Jing Jieyu. A short while later Chang Yuan trotted over and said Wen Lang had summoned me in. Entering the Qianyuan palace auxiliary hall, Wen Lang greeted me with a smile when he saw me. Have you waited long? I laughed. Brother Lang is so happy that he doesn't remember you. Approaching Wen Lang's side, he smelled a faint scent of fragrant powder, and his heart gave a slight lurch. So soon you've sought out the heartwarming one? Wen Lang looked at me very carefully, with a somewhat teasing expression. Are you blaming me for not visiting you for a long time, or are you just eating? My face was hot, but the words did not stop. Look at it, but it is used not, dozens of concubines in this harem, are the emperor's one, see who does not see who anyone dares to question. Wen Lang laughed out, so you really came to raise hell. You see, no one is looking for trouble from you, but you've come to look for trouble from me. I was embarrassed and quickly changed the topic. Brother Lang, really has something going on. I want to arrange for Huan Pei to leave the palace for a while, and come to Brother Lang to discuss it. Wen Lang listened to a raised eyebrow. I put the Ring Pei and Niawa appointment with the matter said with him. This original Wen Lang also listening to me mention, nodded and said, this is simple, the day after tomorrow the fourth brother to marry the first consort, tell her to follow the congratulatory gifts of the palace people can go out, and then turn back to me to ask Chang Yuan to find a reason to pick her up in. I nodded. It'll take half a month, I'll just call her sick to the public. Immediately after that, he asked, is King Henyan married to Feng Chunshao, whom the late emperor gave the finger to? See, when Lang said yes, my mind floated in and out of the palace audience that only one side of Feng Chunshao, Henyan Wang married consort, Brother Lang should be greatly prepared a congratulatory gift. When Lang said, yes, as for the person who went to congratulate this harem, who do you think is more suitable? I froze for a moment. Brother Ron, there are some things that are not Discovery's place to ask, much less tell. When Lang frowned somewhat helplessly, if you said this a while ago, I would have blamed you for being rusty with me. Now, I know that you are also aggrieved. The last time I pulled his arm and smiled warmly. It's not like that, Brother Lang, we are close because we grew up playing together. Naturally our relationship is no better than others. Dares to come here rashly today, also because of this layer. But the palace is different. There are no small matters in an emperor's home, and every one of them is important and involves both inside and outside. Lives in a deep palace and doesn't hear about external affairs, so how can she just open her mouth? I continued, as for the last time, calling the Empress Dowager to blame, is always uneasy in her heart. When Lang shook his head, if you say this then I am left with no place to go. Mother didn't ask a single question in front of me, yet I didn't go to defend you. I always felt sorry for you. I was a little moved, that day when Lang sent me back to the palace against the will of the Empress Dowager, but also a large call for doctors to send medicine. I thought of many kinds of consequences, but I never thought that the Empress Dowager even did not ask. I tilted my head and said softly, perhaps it is all clear in the Empress Dowager's mind. When Lang looked down at me, look a little confused. Yes, that day on the matter of the court, Mother said, you are the emperor, some things by your decision, do not have to ask others. I will not ask, but precisely because you are the emperor, some things cannot be by nature. The world is not like a child, not child's play. As I looked at Wen Lang, it was clear that these words had been haunting him, touching him and troubling him. The emperor, an identity that was once not accessible to him, descended upon him in a way that truly shackled his young, free heart. It's just a shame that it's such a big topic that I open my mouth and can't really say anything about it. No matter how close they once were, they have all become bystanders. he didn't seem to think I would say anything, and only smiled ruefully. Even you have become polite with them. I was stunned, my heart suddenly seized, some heartache pulled his hand, apologetically said, Brother Lang, in front of you, will always be the your sister who used to play together. After a pause, with a smile half true, half false, and then there is that you concubine who has fallen out of favor. When Lang lost a smile, you still really do not rely on, do not go to see you also do not want you to become the focus again, this harem is simply the second court, without you in front of, I am also lonely tight. Saying that, when Lang suddenly remembered something, sure Zhejiang's case has been overturned, but no one has been convicted for it, just declared him into the capital, still in Ho vacancy. I thought for a moment and said, Brother Lang, I don't know what the situation is in the former dynasty right now, or what has gone wrong, this time, King Heng En's wedding is an opportunity, he is your only living elder brother, what he says carries weight. He nodded, as usual, it should be your concubine who goes forward to congratulate her, after all, she is the only main position in the palace. I shook my head, Yuer thinks that Jing Jieyu is more suitable. Oh. When Lang's eyes lit up, I have this idea too. I face-bombed and looked at him with a raised eyebrow, that seems really kosher. When Lang poked my forehead with his finger, and you're making a scene. I laughed playfully, otherwise, which one of these concubines does Brother Lang prefer? His lips curved, all very much in favor except you. I crumpled up at that, no, they're not. They're all beautiful and talented. He slanted his eyes to look at me, come on, it is difficult to eliminate the grace of beauty cannot see that there are a few sincere, they married the royal family in this capacity, not me, anyone who is the emperor, our general. I was moved in my heart, so when Lang had already discovered this layer, but still laughed and said, to be with them day and night for a long time, there are always some feelings. He did not want to shake his head, everyone in this harem cannot get out of touch with the previous dynasty, the daughter of the foreign officials is still better, those who are the family of the capital's big officers, each deep-minded, where to talk about what feelings, the more so, the more I miss Roy Rome. This has been the case in the harem since ancient times, and an old palace sister told Yuer a lot of stories about the lack of feelings, and even more tragic ones. After a pause, I asked, is the appointment of your concubine also due to the relationship with the previous dynasty? When Lang nodded, a few days ago, General Chen led a few good errands, coupled with the previous embrace of the merit has not been added, the court has many cronies then began to invite rewards for him, there are constantly feudal fiefs, and even the establishment of the Queen's folders handed up. I mused, no objections from the Prime Minister's side. They are naturally against it, just in the way of embracing the matter, also dare not refute too obvious. On my side, although I have Song Haran and a few of them, they are still shallowly rooted and can't say much, he looked slightly tired, it's not a solution to drag it out like this, so mother proposed to give the Chen family a lordship to appease them a little. I nodded, the Empress Dowager's method is very good the main position is not considered to be a great grace, but it is the only main position, and helping the Empress Dowager to take care of the harem, it seems to be considered to be a great importance at the moment. When Lang lightly frowned, yes, just so, for a moment will not be able to seal the second noble concubine, I had wanted to set you up earlier, so as to help Ruerong to make a point or two. I pacified him, it's still early for next year's draft, there's no rush. How not urgent, now the general began to suppress the prime minister everywhere, many civil matters he also want to intervene in one or two, the fourth brother seldom show up, came to avoid suspicion, inconvenient to help the prime minister to say anything, when Lang looked grave, although the prime minister does not see loyal, but if the Chen family is the only one, it will not be good to do. I helped when Lang analyze, that's why it's all the more important to send Jieyu to congratulate King Hengan on his wedding, both to kiss and flatter his brother and to support the prime minister, who will be grateful. At this time, it is only expedient to check and balance the court. Yes, I keep Jieyu by my side from time to time is also to pave the way, so that this harem is balanced a bit. There is also another layer, Wen Lang looked at me and laughed. Jiayu's nature is cold and quiet, unlike their charming and noisy words. I stayed for a moment, then puffed and laughed out. Really, the heart of the gentleman is cold. People rack their brains to please you, but you say that it is winks and quarrelsome, really hurt the heart. In the future, you should also be more sensible, shouldn't open their mouths when they learnt from Jiayu, turned into an ice sculpture standing aside. He smiled aloud at his words, when he heard Chang Yuan say outside, Your Majesty, the slave has something important to report. Chapter 27 The Wind Rises, 2, After getting the permission, Chang Yuan came in with a happy face, looked at me and showed embarrassment, wanting to say something. Wen Lang asked, What is it? Chang Yuan bowed, back to the emperor, It is the matter of the harem. Wen Lang was a little impatient. Since it's a matter of the harem, if you have something to say, it's not like you don't recognize your. I stood close to the door, probed to see the temple door waiting outside. The two doctors, the heart has guessed the general, sighed, should come always come. Turning to Wen Lang, he smiled, Your Majesty, I'm afraid it's a happy occasion. Wen Lang froze, not sure why, and looked at Chang Yuan, who saw me as usual and hurriedly returned, Your Majesty, Qing Liangyuan of Shihua Palace has been diagnosed by the imperial doctor as pregnant. Wen Lang was very surprised. Busy summoned the doctor to come in to ask a detailed question. I retreated to one side. Qing Liangyuan, that dainty Jiangnan woman Yao Qianshan, looking at Wen Lang's look of joy amidst astonishment, must have cared a little too. The doctor was careful to return to the words, the body just a month pregnant, respect the room, check the day, right on, so Hongyuan dynasty's first prince really has been in the pregnancy. The other thing is that Qing Liangyuan has some weak blood and qi, and needs to be properly adjusted. Wen Lang has instructed the eunuchs to take good care of him, and sent away the eunuchs. Wen Lang has not been immersed in it for a while, and only looked at me indistinctly, and I took a look at Chang Yuan, who was still waiting, and smiled at Wen Lang and said, Liangyuan is pregnant, and as a rule, she should be promoted to the throne. Only then did he come back to his senses and instructed Chang Yuan. Liang Yuan was promoted to a concubine of Qing, and was rewarded according to the usual practice, giving her a soft sedan chair to take her place, and instructing her to serve her well in the palace. Chang Yuan answered the call before I approached Wen Lang and smiled, Congratulations Brother Lang. Calm down. Wen Lang heard suddenly some hesitation, eyes mixed with complex flavor. I can understand his mind, only warm words of relief. Brother Lang, the harem, so many women, there will be many heirs born in the future, anyone must tolerate all this. I just don't know if this baby will survive the birth, but of course, I didn't say the latter. A little while later I said, Brother Ron, if there's nothing else, go see her. Wen Lang nodded his head and was just about to take a step, but with inexplicable trepidation, he turned his head to me and said, Are you coming with me? I was a little amused and a little sad. Brother Ron, at this time of year, no one would be happy to see me in and out of your company, it wouldn't make sense. Nor did I want to stay longer. I only said, Brother Lang can go over and find me if he needs anything, or call me over, will leave first. After hesitating for a moment, I saluted and exited the auxiliary hall. Lead the ring bell back to the palace, all the way speechless. The heart is a little annoyed, but how cannot sort out what they are annoyed. It seems that even if it is something that can be foreseen, really in front of the eyes, there will still be discomfort. After all, this is a side woman for Wen Lang pregnant, the heart is still for Rui Rong sad, as last year when I heard Zhao Shimo pregnant, their own state of mind at that time. The next day Wen Lang issued a decree, said the palace has a lot of affairs, Rong Gui concubine hard to have no time, sent Jing Jiayu on behalf of the harem to Heng and Wang wedding congratulations, although the words said beautiful, but anyone who can see is just an excuse, Jing Jiayu favorite has been the fact. Qing concubine pregnant news also quickly spread throughout the harem. The Empress Dowager is naturally very happy, immediately issued a decree reward, free of the concubines of the daily peace. Seeing the palace appeared 3 tripods, the most heartless concubines know to choose a side to rely on, or I'm afraid that no longer have their own day of reckoning, so only a few days of peace and quiet of the harem all of a sudden and lively. On the third day, I sent Huanpei out of the palace according to Wen Lang's arrangement, instructing her to be careful on her own, and slipped in a letter for her to send home to her parents and Ruero. That night, when Lang came over to my courtyard, I sent the maids down, still laughing with him. Brother Lang must be from the concubines of Qing. Wen Lang raised an eyebrow. How so? Concubine that Brother Lang cannot be accounted for. If you go there, you simply cannot go tonight. If it is Jeyu that, I seem to smile. Brother Lang and how will give up the quiet over there to come over here to listen to me rave. Wen Lang laughed out loud. You can go talk. I also laughed, set up a chessboard to play with him. Brother Lang, how is it on concubine Qing's side? I think her threshold will be broken in the past 2 days. I am not familiar with her. I don't want to go and join in the fun. Wen Lang nodded. Yes, she also spoke with me about it and was a bit troubled. I see her always looking cautious. I winked. That's natural. What about the first prince? It's not trivial. Brother Lang might as well reward her with a grace, and tell the bystanders to bother her less before her fetal phase is firmly established. Wen Lang was a little puzzled. Is that a grace? I nodded my head in mock seriousness. Great grace. Wen Lang smiled faintly and shook his head in disbelief. Right at this moment, a burst of footsteps. Chang Yuan was out at the door again. Your Majesty, I had just made a clever move, and Wen Lang was contemplating where to land the pieces in his hand, and without calling him in, casually said, Speak. Chang Yuan hesitated for a moment, returned at the door. Your Majesty, Fang Kai and Changi body discomfort, asked the palace on duty to see the eunuch. Wen Lang absent-mindedly answered a sound, but attracted my attention, and Changi, that fine eyebrows and eyes of the beautiful woman, because the earliest serving Wen Lang and by the palace made up to the small Changi, her body discomfort is really not a matter of fact. Chang Yuan at this time to report. I think there must be a following. Wen Lang finally landed his son, and seemed to be quite pleased with himself, signaling me to land my son. I saw that he didn't seem to pay attention to Chang Yuan's reply at all, so I had to open my mouth for him, and in the meantime, I also repeated what happened, and Changi invited the eunuchs. What did the eunuch say? Chang Yuan hurriedly back. The duty doctor said that he could not take, said to ask the imperial hospital to send someone into the palace to diagnose. Wen Lang with some impatience. What disease cannot get, urgent? It's late, let's talk about it tomorrow. Chang Yuan answered, a little reluctantly. I listened to my heart, asked, instead, what are the symptoms? Do not delay. Chang Yuan said, back to the master, that the duty eunuch said. That it looks like a pregnancy. Vin Lang snapped his head up. What? Chang Yuan hurriedly back, that the guards do not dare to determine. I feel that the matter is important, so come to ask the emperor is not declared to give a look again. I also frowned, looked at the appearance of Wen Lang surprised, concluded that the 2 months and more clothes should not have been bedtime. The pregnancy, diagnosis of pregnancy is the basis of the doctor. No some pulse can diagnose out, that the duty doctor and how it is possible to not determine, must feel that the matter is important, do not want to take the responsibility just. Seeing that Wen Lang had no intention of opening his mouth, I instructed Chang Yuan, keep it quiet for now, go and invite a eunuch into the palace. Chang Yuan breathed a sigh of relief and answered and went away, and I asked Wen Lang, where did this and she originally serve? Wen Lang Shang surprised at this news, face expression is a little complicated. Is the reign of the mother arranged over? Then there are 4 or 5 it. I nodded. In that case, then there is no mistake, her pregnancy is 80% true. I'm afraid that there are already 2 or 3 months, usually she is either claiming to be sick, or hidden in the crowd, but really no one noticed. Wen Lang wondered, why is she like that? Pregnant not report, this and even more clothes is not too stupid, is too smart. I spoke faintly, her origin is too low, the future is not to rise to the main position, must not dare to in many official ladies into the palace when they burst out of the pregnancy, rob the crowd of the scenery, the future which can still be based on the harem. Now her figure can't be hidden for a few days, and it just so happens that concubine Qing is pregnant, so she will naturally reveal it quickly. Wen Lang shook his head somewhat helplessly. Why bother with this mind, it's hard not to treat her poorly. I froze for a moment and didn't continue the topic, just smiled. How come any time there's happy news, I ask you to be the first to hear it, no matter what? Congratulations to Brother Lang. Wen Lang's expression eased up and teased me. Then won't you become the goddess of mercy? One sentence caused me to wrinkle my face in tears and laughter. Seeing that he didn't have the heart to play chess anymore, he simply threw away his pieces. Come on, Brother Lang, better go over there and take a look. This is your first royal son. Wen Lang was not as warm as he was last time, and only said, let's talk about it tomorrow. I pushed him. Go, I remember that in Chang'e is living in Qingfu Palace, and the Qi Changzai over there is also quite a lovely woman, with a good nature. Brother Lang rests there. It's better than pretending with you over here. Pausing for a moment I added, besides, and Chang'e summoned the eunuch so late, perhaps the body really isn't right. I heard Huanpei say that the first 2 or 3 months are the most critical. Wen Lang nodded his head a little helplessly at this and went. The next day it came out in even more clothes have 3 months pregnant news, and then was promoted to the permanent, Yuan Yen first bedtime although hurried, but also promoted to the talent. She herself is also happy, straight to say thank me. We are also more and more close up. And Changji's pregnancy unexpectedly did not cause too many ripples, although she was promoted to the position was also rewarded, but anyone can see that she is not as pregnant as the same Qing concubine to be valued, and she was deliberately avoiding people. The Empress Dowager also exempt from the peace, it is more difficult to see. Moreover, her identity is quite low, even if she has a son in the future, but also a maximum can only be sealed to the county king of the periphery of the clan, and the throne, power are not touching the edge, is not a threat, and even with her living in the same palace of Yuan Yen in front of me I rarely mentioned her. Perhaps that's what Non-Shift was happy to see. Wen Lang is indeed concerned about the concubines of the Qing, often visit, when the reward, the life of her a concubine almost with the Rongui concubines than the shoulder. But Wen Lang did not decree to Qing concubine quiet, so Shihua Palace is still constantly in and out. I was not exempt from Yuan Yen pulled to see a time. This time the Qing concubine has faded a few points of charm, added some bright, although every move is careful, but I look at the speech and demeanor, there are a few points of Rui Rong's shadow. Compared to the Shihua Palace, and Chang on this side of the quiet quite a lot, more than 3 months of the body, has been a little mellow. She saw me very surprised, the same caution under, but more dike fear. I feel bored, just sit and go. Yuan Yen accompanied by the side of walking back together, see my silence, relieved, that in Chang'an has always been that way, but not to you, the whole day overly cautious. See, let a person's heart are not comfortable. I live with her a palace, are rarely over, for fear of frightening her. I am somewhat relieved, smiled. She is indeed not good, hide so long, must be in the heart is to know the palace of evil. We do not provoke her is. Just you can't escape, position above others, always have to take care of it in every way. Yuan Yen was a bit helpless. That's not true. Only a star and a half higher than others who are pregnant, maybe one day will be shorter than her, but also have to be accompanied by fear. This is not every time there is a share of the reward down. I called her side of the people to come over to pick the first to take, but not reluctant to send her. It is really the slaves of the rough and clumsy, cannot enter her yard, or not into the good, in the way of the emperor cannot afford to take on. Yuan Yan's series of complaints, causing me to laugh incessantly. I do not care about what happened just now in Changzai, just think that from now on will not go over to cause suspicion is. ## Chapter 28, The First Snow. Late autumn has arrived, the day cool like a day, the day is still bland and raging. In the Wen Lang's left and right before and after support, the harem on the surface is no one has won the sole favor. The big one is still Rongui concubines and Jing Jieyu too compartmentalized, and occasionally give some small favors to buy the hearts of the people, and there is no big movement. Qing concubines seem to be really got a few points of the heart of the Wen Lang. Just she seems to Have no ambition, more and more gentle and modest, really led a person harshly. Cannot. There are three-legged tripod, the other half of a moment cannot be inserted into the pure pith and Ziki was favored not much, but they are a piano outstanding, a stunning spirit, so that some of the one lang linger, but also from time to time by imperial decree to accompany the driver. Next is me, still at ease to play a warm and gentle concubine's look, stable look. Huan Pei had said that the return in January, do not want to be in December 20th before coming back, really let me anxious for some days. I asked to know is that Nyawa's wife is also pregnant, counting the days is the birth of November. Nyawa would like to be later and then go north to the capital, but his wife insisted on keeping the appointment, so only to give birth to the child in the capital. Nyawa couple drifted habitually, there is no one around to call. Nyawa is a miracle doctor, but there are also not good in the month. The Ring Pei naturally have to help before and after the care, which is late to return to the palace of the day. I asked, got men and women? Huan Pei laughed, it's a daughter, but she's beautiful. Good daughter, mother says it is most sweet, I said with some envy, how is it at home? Huan Pei nodded, master and madam are all well, telling the slave girl to tell miss that there is no need to remember. How can you not remember dash, I asked, by the way, little sister-in-law, she's about to give birth too, isn't she? Yes, the slave girl purposely took Lady Wen's pulse, the fetal image is very good. Speaking of this, Huan Pei somewhat mysteriously came over, according to the slave girl, it's a male fetus, Lady Wen will be able to raise her eyebrows. I poked her in the head, it's not like you've been treating her badly on a regular basis, but you've grown up, and you're not shy. Huan Pei nature is extremely good, from no red-eyed jealousy, only to see her eat a smile, is always our maid in the phoenix, miss, the master has never taught no rules, only to meet some of what disease will point out some of what, this time the slave girl really learnt some of the way to nourish the fetus and adjust the way, miss will always be used in the future. I listened to a slight stunned, a side of the ring bell found, immediately opened, naturally used, now there are 2 in the palace, in the future there may be how many princes and princesses, miss sealed a high position, it is inevitable to help the emperor to care for pregnant concubines. Said also gently pulled the Ring Pei a bit. I just smiled faintly and didn't open my mouth, all of this was just too nebulous for me at the moment. Quickly asking, where's Rui Rong? Is she good? I heard from the emperor that her father has received an official position. Yes, when the slave girl went the day before yesterday, she heard that in the next 2 days, Lord Shi would be picking up Miss Ruirong to go over there, and asked me to convey the gratitude of the Shi family on her behalf. I nodded, that's good, after the new year, soon to be the spring election, it's always much more legitimate to come out of your own house. Huan Pei said, yes, when Miss Ruirong enters the palace, Miss will not be lonely. I looked at her, am I going to be lonely now? There's always no one who can say sweet, thoughtful things. Huan Pei hit the nail on the head to explain the status quo, is not false, in this palace, although there are a few familiar and close, but indeed still separated by a layer, not open to those real secrets. Heart cannot help but feel a little melancholy. I slowly paced to the outer room, my eyes drifted across the door, suddenly a burst of surprise, a few steps across to the door, yeah, it's snowing. Reach out my hand, I feel the stars of the snow falling, only so slight and small, floating like no weight, on the ground that is melted, even the ground has not been wet. But after all, it is snowing, the touch of a slight cold and silent baked the winter atmosphere. My heart jumped a little namelessly, stepped into the courtyard, inhaled deeply the somewhat cold breath, and shivered with relief. Miss is fooling around again, the snow hasn't built up yet and it's most cold this time of year. Ring Pei slipped a hot hand stove into my hand, and Ring Bell draped a large woolen cloak behind me, and my somewhat chilled body was soon warmed. My neck braced against the fur collar of the cloak, warm and slightly itchy, and I just smiled at Ringleader. My physique is slightly cold, as a child body is not very good, and then learned some martial arts, the Ring Pei and helped me to adjust a few years, now with the normal people, just to the winter is very afraid of the cold, it is easy to will be cold all over the body. In the past, when Xuan often for me to find a valuable fur to protect against the cold, there are many rare treasures, but it is a pity to enter the palace are not brought in. This cloak is the winter when Lang asked people to send, although it does not meet my status, because no one and I live in the same palace, I also just in their own palace court head wear, but did not give people to see to go. This snow has been intermittent down 7 or 8 days, until the entire palace garden are accumulated white thick snow, several internal supervisors several times a day are not finished sweeping, God is reluctant to let go of the sunshine. This dynasty nearly 10 years have not had such a heavy snow, and coincided with the end of the year, looking at the upcoming Hongyuan year after the change of the year, the sky is unusually clear, so the whole dynasty called this a great auspicious, indicating the prosperity after the change of the year, it is the omen of great fortune. Look at the new year, the palace people are also day by day happy up, all the palace courtyard, everywhere permeated with joy. New Year's Eve, Qianyuan Palace first in the daytime banquet of the ministers, and then in the evening set up a palace banquet, when Lang and the Empress Dowager called all the concubines of the harem together to participate. This year, the wind, dust, rain and snow, happened too much sadness, finally to send off the last day of the Dushuan dynasty, ushered in the world of Hongyuan, people are dressed up and seat, and even Wenchuan's flesh and blood Zhaoqing County King Jifan, also by the side consort of the Jingqing Qiao Jingyan embraced to attend the banquet, can be said to be gathered together, and it's happy and joyful. Although I look at that little child, still full of sadness. The Empress Dowager resides in the center of the seat, when Lang is slightly to the side, and below him are Rong Gui concubine and Jing Jieyu in turn, the two of them, one noble and one cold, are both silent. The Empress Dowager's next head is Qiao Jinyun and Ziki's vivaciousness and Jifan's noisiness, in stark contrast to the opposite side. I don't know if it is intentional, I was Ro and Qing concubine sat in a place, Pure Sheng instead was placed in my lower table, good Pure Sheng and will not care about these, at this time she is in the temple to offer the art, 10 fingers hook turn, the sound of the zither mellifluous, for a time the Empress Dowager and the one Lang were attracted to listen to the ear of the zither, that zither when the song when crying, haunting the ear, really no one else can be compared to. Compared to Chang when she was 3 months pregnant, at this time, concubine Qing was obviously thinner, and her face was also a little flushed, unable to lift her spirits, causing me not to advise her to eat something. Picking up a bowl of light soup from the newly served dishes and serving it to her, she softly said, "Sister is a person with a body, you always have to struggle to get in something." Perhaps it was because I rarely messed with her on a regular basis, concubine Qing wasn't too defensive towards me, she laughed a little and shook her head, these past few days, I could barely eat anything. When I heard that, I asked, "Did you call the doctor?" Concubine Qing still shook her head, but no longer made a sound. I see the situation is also inconvenient to persuade more, a turn of the eyes but see when Lang just look over, focusing on the side of me, the heart of some fear, this kind of occasion, when Lang's attention should not stay in any one person. However, beside the concubine Qing did not seem to notice, I also had to not move, calmly turned around, looked to the temple to play the piano Pure Sheng. Pure Sheng play the tune called Xiangchuan, at this time has been near the end is very pure, only to see her gradually from the song in the turnaround, the eyes left, pointing to Wen Lang, when I fixed my eyes to see that full of love, her eyes suddenly contained a heartbreaking sadness, the sound of the piano can be messed up for a beat. I don't have to turn around, I know what Pure Sheng saw, I was just surprised and emotional about her deep love for Wen Lang, but also a little regretful, I wonder if she will eventually become a sad woman. Although Pure Sheng quickly covered up the flaws and ended her playing and retreated to the side without attracting the attention of the crowd, those who happened to be staring at her, like me, could still notice the obvious change in her expression. Hashtag Chapter 29, The First Snow, 2, as expected, the Empress Dowager cleared the whole situation with just one glance, only to see her smiling towards concubine Qing. Concubine Qing is pregnant, is her body all right? Concubine Qing busily bowed her head and saluted, "Thank you Empress Dowager, everything is fine with my concubine." The Empress Dowager nodded, and resumed beckoning towards the human queen, and in Changzai, "Come, sit in front." The Empress Dowager opened her mouth, hiding in the end of the Changzai only had to thank the grace, came forward, the people. Only then found in Changzai more than 5 months in the stomach has been quite considerable. Looking at her over, I was about to stand up to let her seat, aside pure Sheng but early stood up, give way to the seat and go, the slightly forlorn back almost no one noticed. And Changzai once again bowed towards the top, and carefully sat down, humble and adorned, and without saying a word. Sandwiched between the two of them, I was a little uncomfortable, so I just lowered my head and slowly took small sips of the soup. When Lang seems to be aware of the retraction of the eyes, Rong Gui concubine on behalf of the harem concubines toast, said some of the scene, everyone is to raise their glasses with, Ziki read some jokes to please the Empress Dowager, the great hall resumed the lively, just around me this side of the area is still silent. Good and good people everywhere, and Chang in the next head is sitting in the Ming nobleman Wang Yiyao, flamboyant her how to let go of this great opportunity, and she hit on the skill has always been clever. A look of sincere concern soon led to an Chang in a sentence without a sentence of the open mouth. Wang Yiyao still tried to bring me into the conversation every now and then, and I wasn't enthusiastic about it, just nodding along occasionally. The harm is not so heavy, but the body has sunk a little, and there is a soreness in the loins and abdomen that crushes some. After about half an hour, the other side of the concubine has not been silent. Qing heard and Changzai this suddenly reacted, she twisted the body, crossed me to ask and Changzai, "Can ask the doctor to see?" And Chang in the moment some surprise, quickly accompanied by careful answer, "Some days ago the pain is very strong, trouble too doctor came to a trip, the doctor said it is a normal symptom, just need to be more active in the weekdays." Concubine Qing was a bit perverse and seemed uneasy as she followed up with, "Is it not in the way?" And Changzai nodded, "The imperial doctor said everyone is like this, it's not in the way." Then added, "In the past few days, it has gotten better." At the beginning of the banquet Wang Yiyao had thought of ways to talk with concubines, are met with cold, this time to see the concubines take the initiative to speak. Of course, I couldn't wait to get a chance to hasten to interject, "Sisters, but the body is not happy. Must ask the doctor to diligently take care of, cannot be wrong it." Concubine Qing nodded and did not wish to reply, but only smiled kindly towards an Changzai, "Your body has sunk, you always need to pay more attention during the weekdays." And always in since was hastened to say yes, I was the closest, can obviously see that Qing concubine this sentence is just perfunctory, and even have to change the subject and cover up the meaning of her eyes vaguely. A few points such as relief let a person puzzled. Just then, when Lang looked over again and said lightly, "If your body is tired, go back to rest early." This is naturally said to my left and right two people, they have long been hard to hold out for a long time, get this natural trend to leave. I also take the opportunity to leave the seat as usual, no longer in this temple to watch the crowd of the competition. Each person's personal maid had been marqueeing behind them, and so had Huanpei, and when I got up and found Huanpei a little lost in thought, I softly called to her, "Huanpei, let's go." Huanpei then back to God, looking around, suddenly a few steps to catch up with the front is about to step out of the door of the palace of concubines Qing, reached out to assist the arm of concubines Qing froze, soon without trace will be pushed away from Huanpei. Huanpei also do not insist on, turn back to my side. I was very surprised at the actions of the Ring of Pei, but at this time there are many eyes, since it is not allowed to ask, as usual, out of the hall, looking at the front of the Qing concubine's palanquin to go far away, only then turned his head to look at the Ring of Pei. "What did you just do it?" Huanpei looked odd and helped me walk a few quick steps, turning through the forest, before she whispered in my ear, "Miss, I'm afraid that concubine Master Qing's fetus is not well." I was taken aback, "What?" Huanpei looked back and forth, to and fro, or there are shadows, so he said, "Let's talk about it in front." Accelerating our pace to walk farther away, we found a secluded path, and Huanpei said, "Miss, have you ever noticed that concubine Master Qing is very concerned about An Changzai's body? I nodded. It does seem a little counterintuitive. Huan Pei hit the nail on the head. In the slave girl's opinion, what she cares about is not An Changzai, but the symptoms of An Changzai's pregnancy. I raised an eyebrow. Oh. What's so special about An Changzhi's symptoms? Didn't the eunuchs all say it's not a problem? Huan Pei shook her head and whispered, and often. Said that she often has soreness and swelling on her waist and abdomen. This symptom is indeed nothing important. It is because her pregnancy has already been more than 5 months, the fetus is forming and growing, 7 or 8 out of 10 are like this. It's just that looking at concubine Master Qing's appearance, it seems like she has the same trouble. I was somewhat understanding and puzzled. You're saying that over 5 months is normal, then Qing concubine's 3-month body dash. Huan Pei's face was heavy. That would be very bad. I frowned. What do you mean bad? According to reason, 3 months pregnant should not have acidity and bloating. If there is extremely bad. Slave girl was not sure. Just when concubine Qing got up to leave, slave girl boldly to assist, is to verify. My heart tightened. How? The body is slightly hot, the palms are hot, and if you add to that a flushed face, soreness and swelling in the waist and abdomen, and the person is seen to be wasting away dash. Huan Pei paused for a moment. It's a sign of miscarriage caused by obvious blood heat. Sighing, he walked forward slowly. In his heart he felt a little sorry for Qing concubine, but he always felt that there was something wrong, and suddenly he remembered. Huan Pei, what's the matter with this blood fever? Qi and blood filling up to stagnation is usually due to one's own constitution, which has no effect on weekdays, and is only triggered after the body is pregnant. Speaking of this, Huan Pei suddenly frowned. I also had a discovery, said, no, when concubine Qing was just diagnosed with a pregnancy, the doctor clearly said that she was weak in Qi and blood. How is it that she has now become a blood fever? Is it possible that this blood fever cannot be sudden? Huan Pei slowly shook her head. No, and the symptoms of concubine Master Qing are already very obvious. There's no reason why the imperial doctor can't diagnose them. I pondered. In the palace, for pregnant concubines, the eunuchs are on the go, if not summoned, should also be 5 days to take the initiative to ask for a diagnosis. Recently look at concubine Qing's appearance, should not have summoned the eunuchs. Then, I looked up sharply. Tomorrow the Empress Dowager and His Majesty will be leaving to go to the mausoleum to pay homage to the Emperor, at least to be 5 days to come back. Several senior doctors must be accompanied by the car. This concubine Huan Pei also changed her face. Miss, could it be that? I stopped Huan Pei with a look. Forget it, it's useless to talk about this now, let's go back first. Concubine Qing's everything low-key and cautious, do not want to provoke words is well known. If someone intends to harm her, now is indeed a good opportunity, is sure that the big year under the concubine Qing will not make great efforts to summon the doctor. All the way to silence, back to the Jinghe Palace, just into the clouds no the court, a room of subordinates on all welcome out. I again realized that today is the New Year's Eve, and then raised a smile, commanded ring pay reward. All are joyful, I do not want to spoil their excitement, also let them play snow playful, until midnight, only to order them to disperse. I called the ring pay ring bell house idle discussion. Soon, there was the sound of a bell ringing, even though it was a yearly bell to ring out the old and welcome in the new year. The sudden ringing still made my heart tremble fiercely, and a whole lot of emotions surged up to my heart, overflowing densely and indistinctly, and there was a momentary suffocation that made me shrink my shoulders. However, it was only for a moment, and then I suppressed all the emotions, and breathed out a long sigh of relief. The first year of Hongyuan belongs to the dynasty of Wenlang. Early on the first morning, the harem of all people are according to the big makeup, to Qingxian Hall to pay homage to the ancestors. This kind of day is naturally rewarded. Sure enough, the people have not yet risen. There will be the eunuchs to declare the order to stand in front of, in addition to the usual praise words and jewelry rewards, from the top of the concubines to the bottom of the dressing gowns. The harem of everyone to be able to promote the position of the first level. This is not rare in the past dynasty. All are happy. Rong Gui concubine promoted from the second-grade repair, Jing Jieyu promoted to the main concubine, Ziki promoted to Jieyu, Qin concubine, concubine E and I are Wan Yi Yao and Song Bining are good luck, Yuan Yen promoted to the beauty of the Enchang in the talent. The decree finally said that today's temporary first awarded the decree, to be sacrificed to the mausoleum after the return of the ceremony and then line the ceiling of the rite of passage. After the Qianyuan palace to thank the grace, Wen Lang just a faint smile to look at everyone, a steady look around, the expression is not half a difference. To Rong Shui handed over a few words of the scene, that Tai Ran Zunshi's look is almost already an emperor, except when he turned to board the carriage that a few invisible a trace of bewilderment, perhaps, is just my illusion. The people knelt and sent Wen Lang and the Empress Dowager to leave the palace. The carriage slowly started. I suddenly raised my head in a ghostly manner and looked towards Wen Lang. At this time, Wen Lang was looking towards me through the window of the carriage, and his gaze fell on Qin Wan Yi, who was kneeling next to me with some difficulty. Wen Lang also saw me, quickly gave me a look. I was stunned for a moment, and then lowered his head. Wen Lang clearly asked me to help take care of Qin Wan Yi, reasonable, but really surprised me. I do not know what he cares about so much, is the child in the belly of Qin Wan Yi, or something else. Until many days later, I could not understand why I raised my head at that time, and made such a great irreverence at such a solemn and momentous time, which, though no one saw it, caused me great trouble afterwards. ### Chapter 30, Man-Made Disasters. The next day, there is Qin Wan Yi side of the urgent message of the doctor. I know that I'm afraid it is not good, just to send the ring bell to visit, but also feel that it is not good, this kind of time. She went to think that will not be able to ask what, it would be better for me to go to visit openly, but also listen to what the doctor said. So do not care about the former taboo, get up and hurriedly rushed to Shihua Palace. When I arrived Rongxiu Yi and Ziki already over there, Yuan Yi and I arrived almost at the same time. After a while Wang Yiyao also came to join in the fun, only missing Jing Gui concubine. Look at the look of each person is also concerned, greeted each other, will sit in the outer room, waiting for news inside. Soon to see a young doctor from the inner room out of the face, open to ask the natural at this time of the harem of the Lord Rongxiu Yi, Wan Yi how? The eunuch respectfully replied, back to Empress Xiu Yi, Master Wan Yi's fetal phase is not stable, it is caused by blood heat. Rong Shui nodded slowly, frowned but did not speak, but it was Ziki who blurted out, but is it dangerous? The doctor's white face with some hesitation, with his age does not match the old look, seems to be in the word weighing powerful, said, back to Jieyu, blood fever is not difficult to cure, just to promote the blood of the formula and the pregnancy against. Wan Yi Master's blood fever has been sent to the powerful, adjusting up is extremely difficult. Although this is said in a vague way, the meaning is more than clear, cure or no cure, are extremely dangerous. For a while, everyone's faces were grave, and no one opened their mouths again. I took a moment to look behind me at Huanpei, and when I saw that Huanpei had lowered his eyes and nodded slightly, I knew that it was not false, and a pang of regret ran through my heart. The eunuch stood there somewhat at a loss for words, or Rong Shui gave the word, it's about the dragon's heir, summon all the eunuchs in the capital to the palace, and if there's a mistake, watch out for your heads. The eunuch sniffed and answered in a coy manner. I wanted to go in and take a look at Qin Wan Yi, so I said, sisters, should we go in and take a look? Rong Shui did not expect me to say this, she looked at the others and nodded, Qin Wan Yi's body is not well, let's just take a look, and don't disturb her with too many people. Lan Jieyu and Yuan Yi will go in with the palace, the others will return. Wang Yiyao was a little indignant, but did not dare to say anything. Yuan Yi could not see any emotion, and calmly retired. Entering the inner room, he saw Qin Wan Yi leaning on the couch, her face still flushed. When she saw us, she made a move to get up, and Rong Shui hurried over, come on, don't move, your body and the dragon's heir are important. Ziki also said, yes, rest quickly, we just came in to see you. I did not make a sound, some lost in thought looking at Qin Wan Yi. if the weekdays she still use a layer of caution wrapped around themselves, then at this time she has completely returned to that delicate Jiangnan woman, no cover for panic and helplessness, full of eyes overflowing with water mist, so deplorable, such as the panic when the Roy roam. The look when Lang gave me on his way out suddenly came to my mind. If Qin Wan-yi had lost the fetus this time, no matter what he cared more about, he would have been sad, right? And it's not like I haven't thought about that look he gave me on his way out. What exactly does it count as? In this way, she left Shihua Palace full of confusion, and returned to Yun Ziyuan, and finally couldn't help but ask, Huanpei, according to you, how is her fetus? Huanpei mused, it's hard to say, but if it drags on like this, I'm afraid it's just a matter of a day. Or two. Isn't there a cure? Huanpei frowned. Slave girl did not take the pulse, really dare not assert, just look at the appearance of the doctor. I'm afraid that he did not have the guts to take risks, even if the prescription, but also no more than some mild conditioning. I am silent. Qin Wanyi looks really bad. When Lang is not in, I think no one will not be how dedicated, do not ask for credit, but not to avoid faults, but also how many people hope that she did not have the baby. I know that this mixed water cannot trip, as long as it is intervened, instantly is a target, and may not be able to achieve, so for a person who is not related, really not worth the loss. Just, after all, that will be a small life, when Lang's blood, so past, ultimately is a sobering, and when Lang's somewhat far-fetched will, let me in the rationality and emotion between the vacillation, for a long time without words. Raising her eyes, Huanpei, do you have a way to make her last until the emperor returns from the mausoleum sacrifice? That wouldn't be difficult. Huanpei thought for a moment, and suddenly her eyes widened as she looked at me. Miss, you don't mean to, when it comes to preserving the fetus, the judge of the Imperial Hospital still has some skills. If I can wait until then, there may still be some hope. I sighed, and then looked at her. That must be the flesh and blood of His Majesty. If I do nothing, I'm afraid that I will regret it in the future. But miss, the words rose, but Huanpei did not make another sound, only biting her lip and locking her brows, twisting her head to the side. Suddenly I can understand her feelings. In reason, as a close person beside me, she should be 1,000 objections to me to do this. The danger is known to everyone. However, in her heart, how could she break her faith as a healer and stop me from doing this and stand by? For a while, the two of us were silent trying to find a reason for ourselves, but hesitant to find a basis for entering or an excuse for retreating. After a long time, the ringleader turned away wordlessly. The whole afternoon Ring Pei did not see the shadow. To the palm of the lamp, a small brown porcelain bottle in front of me, I pulled open the lid. Look at the inside of some white powder, Ring Pei said. This medicine can be guaranteed for at least 5 days, the latter, we have to look at the Imperial Hospital. I nodded. If we do our best, we won't have missed the Emperor's mandate. The ring bell on the side was a bit indignant. Does the Emperor really have this kind of mandate? Miss is not the Queen Mother. This kind of fact is really difficult for us. If it were usual, Ringling's mouth would have caused Ring Pei to count his words. I laughed slightly. Where did all this whining come from? How are we going to get Qin Wan-yi to take this medicine? Do you have any ideas? Ringling deflated. The slave girl is still familiar with the small eunuchs of the Imperial Hospital, so I'm sure it won't be difficult. Huanpei faintly opened, or slave girl go, last time Miss sick, that many expensive herbs are from the Imperial Hospital lead, slave girl has been there many times, familiar with the terrain, this kind of thing, the less people know the better. I knew she didn't want to put Ringling at risk and nodded my head in agreement. The next 2 days, Qin Wanyi's side is very calm, inquired about the news that the person's spirit some improvement, the fetal phase has also improved, so I cannot help but breathe a sigh of relief. Huanpei medical skills are really top. Finally came to the 5th this day, when Lang should return to the palace. The spirit of all people also played up. Early in the morning most of them gathered to the Yongxiang Palace waiting to go to receive the driver. I did not expect Rongxiu-yi said. Last night outside the letter came in, said the Queen Mother's body has a health problem, the Allied driving delayed a day to tomorrow before returning to the palace, all the sisters back to it. The crowd gossiped a few words, and then dispersed. I was accompanied by Yuan Yen, the rare warm sun in winter, the sun in front of the eyes of the bright and shining, the body is also comfortable. For some reason, when Lang's postponement of the return to the palace makes me vaguely a little uneasy in my heart, tossing and turning, rubbing the warm stove in my hands, perfunctorily Yuan Yan's interest in touring the garden, and wandering slowly and somewhat out of focus. Turning the corner and raising her eyes, she saw that the Shihua palace was on her right-hand side, and suddenly found a source of anxiety in her heart, and fixed her heart, saying to Yuan Yan, "Qin Wan-yi hasn't gone out in the past few days, so let's go to take a look at her, shall we?" I could see that Yuan Yan was a bit surprised, but still nodded happily and entered Shihua palace. In front of Qin Wan-yi's door, I sent Huan Pei to go up and pass the message. Soon, the inside of the stewardess of the palace Xiaohua welcomed us in, asked only to know that her master is still in bed. Please ask us if we want to visit the back of the temple. Yuan Yan heard some hesitation, asked me sideways meaning, put aside in the past, I must not go in, but today, already stood here, I am determined to go to see a glance, and immediately nodded yes, for Yuan Yan's hesitation only is not seen. Into the inner hall, see Qin Wan-yi crooked leaning on the couch, and the last time I saw almost the same position, spirit and color is much better, I feel a little bit more at ease. Sister, these days can be good? Qin Wan-yi nodded, it's better. Two sisters, sit down. I sat down with Yuan Yan, before I opened my mouth, and heard her say, Sister is playing Yongxiang Palace to come. His Majesty. And the Empress Dowager, when will you return to the palace? I smiled faintly. She is also this kind of expectation. At this time Yuan Yan said that the Empress Dowager body slightly ill, to tomorrow before returning to the palace. Qin Wan-yi revealed an undisguised disappointment as she listened and nodded gently. Sister, if you are better, you can go outside to walk around, this day is good. I broke the situation that no one spoke for a while. Sister heard that this pregnancy should be more active. Qin Wan-yi smiled bitterly, her side of the shao he opened for her. Back to you, master, the eunuch is also so say, just, some days ago our master body weakness is serious, a little move will not be able to catch the spirit of the spirit, these 2 days the spirit of the strength of the good a lot, yesterday also got up to take a walk, look at the big improvement, I did not expect that today and not very good. I was shocked to hear, what? Qin Wan-yi used her eyes to stop Xiao He from opening her mouth again and only said, it may be that she slept uneasily during the night, and this day her whole body is sore, and she is too lazy to move. I frowned and was about to ask in detail, when suddenly a palace maid from Qingfu Palace came to look for Yuan Yan, and Kai Ren from the west courtyard slipped and fell down just now, and the imperial doctor has been summoned, so young master go back and take a look. Yuan Yan was shocked to hear, panicked and retired to Qin Wan-yi. Qin Wan-yi has a white face, want to be scared, nodded carelessly, sent Xiaoho send out. I was thinking about Qin Wan-yi's pregnancy, so although I stood up and wanted to go, I was still hesitant. At this time, Huan Pei suddenly spoke up, Master Qin quickly put her mind at ease, don't affect your pregnancy. I heard a heartbeat. Ring Pei has always been calm and steady, how this time this kind of impatience? Turning my head to look at her, Huan Pei's grave expression gave me a hint. Pondering in my heart for a moment, I turned to the somewhat alarmed Qin Wan-yi and said, that little Lord N's pregnancy is already 6 months old, I think it won't be so easy to fall off, sister's body is not well, so don't worry about that side. Pause, this girl, I know a little medicine, the whole day is often a fuss, sister you do not mind, fast good rest, sister first back. Wait a minute I turned around and was just about to leave when Qin Wan-yi opened her mouth to call me. At this time Xiaoho sent Yuan Yan just came in from the outside. Qin Wan-yi said to her, go and stand guard outside, don't call anyone in. Xiao He was a little surprised, but did not ask anything, turned around and went out. I raised my eyebrows to look at Qin Wan-yi, who settled down and looked straight at me. Sister, you, tell me, this fetus of mine, how is it in the end? Chapter 31, Man-Made Disasters, 2, I was a little surprised that she asked so directly, and for a moment I didn't know how to speak, and froze for a split second, looking at Huanpei. Ringpei came up to me and whispered something to me that made me turn pale all of a sudden. Taking a deep breath, I settled my mind a little before I said to Qing Wanyi, Sister Qing, where did you get the incense you lit in this house? Qing Wanyi's complexion moved for a moment, moving her lips and cautiously not opening her mouth. Seeing this, I then said, Sister also do not ask, just this day, although cold, the air is still available, Sister or more ventilation is good, as for this incense, or less use some. Sister that there are also some on the Emperor's reward of Snowbird's nest, back to Sister stewed sent over, also counted the Sister to the air of a heart. When I said that, I didn't wait for her to reply, nodded my head to show my salute, and turned to go. When Xiao He, who had escorted me to the gate of Shihua Palace, went back, I hurriedly said to Huan Pei, no matter what, we must preserve this fetus, so you go and do it quickly. I'll go over to Talent Lady and side to take a look. Looked at the ring. Pei hurried away. I went towards Qingfu Palace. I thought there would be many people on this side. I do not want to and Talent live in the west side of the courtyard. Only Yuan Yen, one person and a few maids. See me come. Yuan Yen came to my side. I looked at this side of the room and thought it must be in order. How is it? Is her pregnancy okay? Fortunately, nothing, just got a shock. The doctor prescribed a tranquilizing formula to calm the fetus, said there is no major harm. Just now Lan Jieyu and Liang concubine came over to see the eye, and back. Yuan Yen stroked her chest. She got a shock. False alarm. I can really be scared to death. I laughed at her. That pregnancy of hers won't be born for another 3 or 4 months, and you're going to be in shock for a while. Looking at Yuan Yen fretting, I comforted her again, even though you guys live in one palace, but you are not the main position after all. Even if something happens, you can't be blamed. Yuan Yen was still uneasy. I can't be blamed, but I'm afraid to rely on me. Good Yuer, turn around and find a chance to talk to the Emperor, move her to another palace. I listened to the tears and laughter, my sister Yen, to say that it is not my turn to say, and say now the harem is Rongxiu E tube, on top of the Empress Dowager. The Emperor will not intervene in such things. Yuan Yen listened with another bitter face and lamented. Since the Qingfu Palace back, hastily with the meal, reading and playing the piano are not condensed, until the ring pei came in the bird's nest to the Shihua Palace sent over, I was slightly relieved. Early the next morning, the people are waiting in Yongxiang Palace. Midday there is a rumor that the imperial chariot has arrived outside the city. All the concubines rushed to the door of the inner palace to wait for the chariot, soon saw the carriage, are kneeling down to worship, but unexpectedly, only the Empress Dowager from the carriage and called up. The Empress Dowager's voice is a little weak and soft. Think body is still not very refreshing. His Majesty has political affairs, went to the court, you all dispersed. Rong Xiu went over to assist the Empress Dowager on the inner palace sedan chair. The crowd was about to disperse. Suddenly a palace maid panicked to report Rong Xiu Nianjiang, Qing Wanyi's pregnancy is not good. You quickly go over to take a look at it. All the people present were puzzled. My heart was even more thumping, and hastily went to look at the ring pei behind me, but she had the same look of incomprehension, and shook her head with a few invisible shakes. Rong Xiu was the first to stabilize the scene. Please go back and rest first, I'll go over and take a look. Unexpectedly, the Empress Dowager said, let's go, the mourning family will also go over to take a look. A line of vast to the Shihua Palace, the concubines on both sides. Rong Xiu helped the Empress Dowager in the main seat sat, ordered the courtesan on the tea, can have called the doctor. Find someone to come over to reply. Soon the eunuch doctor that he had seen before knelt in the middle of the hall and replied, Micro-Minister Li Rengui sees the Empress Dowager and all the ladies. Back to the Empress Dowager and Lady Shui, Master Wan Yi has already had a miscarriage. A sentence shocked everyone. Is a stiff face. The Empress Dowager busy asked, how can this be? Can we find out the reason? Li Rengui replied with some hesitation, at first, Master Wan Yi had symptoms of blood fever, and the fetus was indeed unstable, and I have prescribed a formula to adjust it, and there was an improvement in the first 2 days, and as a matter of fact, it shouldn't be. The Empress Dowager frowned. Mourner only asks now. So many useless words. Yes, according to my humble inference, Master Wan Yi has mistakenly taken something that is not beneficial to the fetus within the past day or two, or his forehead was sweating a little, he drew in a breath, but still said it, or she has been poisoned. The Empress Dowager smiled, swept the crowd for a week, coldly opened her mouth. I also said that this group of you are stable, it turns out that there are also some uneasy. Check. Immediately check. The people around her. The person who handles the food and medicines are called over to the mourning family. Soon kneeling a few lackeys, palace maids in the temple, Xiaohua in the forefront, eyes red and sobbing, the Empress Dowager asked, "You are beside her? These 2 days your master have what is unusual? Who all has come to this palace?" Xiaohua bent down and said, back to the Empress Dowager, "Slave girl named Xiaohua, Qing master since a few days ago on the body is not very good, these days are not out of this Shihua palace, food is also as usual, the daily soup medicine from the imperial hospital to send, slave girl personally warmed up to the master to take, and do not pretend to be someone else. These 2 days only. Yuani and Chimaran came to see our master yesterday." At this time Li Rengui came back in to reply, saying that after checking the meal there is no abnormality. The crowd's eyes fell on me and Yuan Yen. Yuan Yen has been nervous lately. A look at this situation, busy kneeling. Back to the Empress Dowager, I was yesterday with Yuan Yi to this side, but only a while, and talent on the other side of the situation, I left. Yuan Yen finished with a few apologies to look at me, her anxious to clear the mood. I can understand, since I do not blame her, gave her a reassuring look, also kneeled down to reply, back to the Empress Dowager, Qi Beauty said is true, I later stayed a moment more. Well, get up first, the Empress Dowager waved her hand and told us to get up, her gaze swept over Li Rengui, the meal is fine, so it's the soup and medicine. That Li Rengui was so shocked that he shrank, by the look of him he seemed to have something to say, but wanted to say it. No one looked deeper into his reaction, though, because Xiaoho opened her mouth again at that moment and whispered back, making me sweat all of a sudden. Empress Dowager, yesterday since the afternoon, Master Qing has not eaten meals, only Jinghe Palace sent a bowl of bird's nest, to the middle of the night, Master Qing is not good. This was said without referring to anyone in particular, but it couldn't be clearer, I was the only one living in Jinghe Palace, and Qing Wanyi hadn't eaten, so how could I defend myself? The Empress Dowager's eyes grew colder as she commanded, go to Jinghe Palace and search. I knelt again, the heart frank but inevitably apprehensive, a time in the temple no one to speak again, after a tea time, suddenly there is a report, His Majesty arrives. I sighed in my mind, someone still informed him that he would be saddened by the loss of a child in only a few days. There were hurried footsteps coming up behind them, and the crowd hooped and hollered and knelt. All right, get up. When Lang took a few steps to the front of the temple, his words were a bit anxious, seeing that I was the only one still kneeling, he was also puzzled, what's going on? Rong Xiuyi picked up the key points and said with Wen Lang, also let him listen more and more locked brow, eyes towards me, I am also speechless. At this time the Empress Dowager sent to my palace to search for people returned to report, said in my palace searched for some dregs of medicine, brought back to the doctor to check. Li Rengui and the dregs of the medicine picked for a while, and smelled and tasted, the expression is a little complicated, quite hesitant for a while, and then secretly look at me, I just quietly staring at him, and no expression. Wen Lang is very anxious, want to ask but hesitant, looked at the doctor, and then came to look at me, eyes containing probing, I suddenly do not know how to respond, only to bite his lips. The Empress Dowager urged, what's going on? Report quickly. Back to the Empress Dowager, the Emperor, this dregs of the formula is very strange, I have not seen, I estimate that the main effect of this medicine is. Li Rengui carefully weighing the words, but was interrupted by Rong Xiuyi, who had not opened his mouth, there is no need to the effect is not necessary, Dr. Li only said that this medicine has no effect on the pregnancy. This midwinter, Li Rengue wiped his sweat ironically. Yes, this dregs of medicine contains a small amount of coriander and half lotus, the dosage is not so much though. He looked at the group of masters above him, and seemed to have made a decision, and without further hesitation, said, this medicine is not conducive to pregnancy, and when I checked Master Qing's tonic, I found that it also contained this substance, but it was dispensed in a colorless and tasteless manner, and I don't know when it was added by someone. Good. Good. The Empress Dowager slapped her palm on the case. This formula is really strange now. Yuan Yi, what do you have to say? I was stunned, want to explain, but do not know where to start, cannot say that Huanpei suspected Qing Wan Yi poisoned, no evidence, at this time to say that no one will believe, perhaps also take Huanpei. The one who had the decency to open her mouth was Rong Shui again. Sister Yu, the Empress Dowager and the Emperor are all here, waiting for you to reply. How can Yang Xiu-yi still call her sister? She harmed Qing Wan Yi, how can she still be our sister? Hearing the voice, I knew it was Wang Yiyao, bringing everyone down a few tears. Sister Qing can be really pitiful. Your Majesty, I feel that this matter is not yet conclusive. The most unlikely to open her mouth, Han Liang Yuan Song by Ning, surprisingly stood out. If Yuan Yi had tampered with Qing Wan Yi's medicine, why would she have to send another bowl of bird's nest over, exposing herself in a raw manner? When this statement was made, Zi Qi and Yuan Yen both agreed. Alas, it was less than a day short of a day, and Sister Qing waited with ba, but did not wait for the Emperor to return. A choked voice, a seemingly inadvertent exclamation, answered the questions raised by Song Bining in a single word, and sought a sufficient reason for my so-called exposure of myself, which even I couldn't help but admire if I wasn't in the center of the vortex. Instead, I was left with a shock of disbelief, so much so that I had to turn my head to look at the speaker, and to my even greater surprise, she didn't even avoid my gaze, maintaining a mournful expression that left me a little bewildered for a moment. I heard correctly, this person is that woman who has been recognized as a sister to Ziki and I, Wan Yi Feng Chun Sheng. Hashtag Chapter 32, Man-Made Disasters. 3. I believe in Huanpei's medical skills, but I have no time to think about why Qing Wan Yi is still in miscarriage. When Lang looked at me, confusion and sadness showing from his furrowed brow, and the low voice, did you do this? I was suddenly a little sad, for my own lack of defense, for the little life I hadn't been able to save, and for Wen Lang's pained and regretful gaze. So I just nodded calmly, yes. This answer made many people's hearts visibly relieved, and it also caused Wen Lang to change his face violently. Knowing that any explanation would pale in comparison, I spoke reluctantly. It's just that the medicine not having the chance to finish, a palace maid hurriedly ran out from the inner hall. Empress Dowager, Emperor. Master Qing suddenly can't stop bleeding. He has already fainted. Quickly ask the imperial doctor to go in. Go. When Lang urged Li Rengue and ordered his lackey, go to the imperial hospital and call all the court envoys and judges. Emperor, a little peace. Qing's sister, auspicious person, heavenly phase, will be fine. Many people messy, not to ask the crowd first dispersed. Rong Shui stabilized the scene. Just this Yuan Yi, how to dispose of it. When Lang turned back to me and was about to speak when the Empress Dowager said, since she has confessed, she can no longer return to the Jinghe Palace, and the servants in the palace should be thoroughly investigated for the same offense. If the Emperor wants peace and harmony in the harem, he must not be tolerated. This said when Lang Qing cold face, swept a glance at the concubines in the temple, coldly opened, Mu in addition to the title down to more clothes, escorted into the House of Internal Affairs prison, Jing and a cadre of people in the Palace of Confinement, waiting to be sentenced. I was shocked to hear, when Lang's disposition is really some heavy, to know even if it is a death sentence, but also at most to the cold palace. My dynasty rarely have the concubines into the prison precedent. Even the Empress Dowager did not move to express surprise. The expression of the concubines must be very wonderful. I opened my mouth, my heart surged with aggression, turned into tears filling my eyes, biting my lower lip, hard not to let it fall. It's just that, I chose it myself, I can't blame anyone else. So also no longer look at Wen Lang, only upright to thank the grace, let the law enforcement eunuch took away. When I came out of the Shihua palace, I saw Huanpei ring bell, the two of them obviously panicked, wanted to follow but was stopped. I gave Huanpei a firm look, and gently shook my head, telling her not to act rashly. I think she must understand what I mean. The Internal Affairs Office Heavenly Prison is for the detention of the palace felons and the royal secret trial of the use of prisoners, before the two cult hostages are detained here, due to the recent change in the dynasty, had a general amnesty, so this place is very cold. I cooperate with the unloading of the hairpin ring handed over to the guards. They have rarely seen a concubine was locked in before, did not make things difficult with me, only asked me not to make noise, waiting for the arraignment. Thinking about today's events, the more I think the more strange, but always do not solve. The heart is also messy and irritable, a variety of emotions stirring around, making it very difficult. After a while, people quiet down. I began to examine the predicament in front of me. The heavenly prison is very clean, tables and beds are complete, just no sunlight, also did not make a fire, very damp and cold. January's weather, my body's palace clothes can only adapt to the warmth of the room, really not cold, this kind of place. I'm afraid I can't survive for a few days, shrinking in a corner of the bed, on the Wen Lang cold and iron hard to complain about turned up in the heart. He knows I'm most afraid of the cold, but also this kind of disposition. It is hard not to be really determined that my crime, to punish me. Gradually feel the body is a little tired, grab the bed's thin quilt, curled up wrapped in it to lie down. Remembering that they have not suffered from this kind of pain since they were small, cannot help but be a little heartbroken, if Brother Chuan is still in the. Forcing myself to close my eyes and not think about it, the tears welled up uncontrollably. The whole body is cold, this sleep is extremely unsettled, has been in a half-dream, half-sleep, during which it seems that someone sends a meal over. I did not pay attention to, I do not know when the hour when sleeping and waking up. Until I realized that someone was whispering outside, I couldn't really hear them, then the sound of the door opening made me wake up, and my eyes hazily looked over, and there stood Wen Lang. Behind him there are some side of the subordinates, as well as the guards of the heavenly prison. At this time in the sense of reason is to see the driving. I support the body, with the thin quilt slides down, the body has not been warmed up over the contact with the damp and cold air, really shivering, so that I subconsciously retracted the movement. The gray and black brick floor looks cold and hard, let me look at the fear. This hesitation work. Wen Lang has arrived at the bedside. I clenched my teeth, or out of bed, kneeling on the floor, the cold and surrounded me. The feeling of the knees is even more deadly, sucking in a breath of air to hold back. A moment of the throat cannot send out a sound. All go wait outside. Fortunately, Wen Lang waved his hand at this time and told the lackeys and guards to retreat, and lifted me up with both hands, sighing with exhaustion between his brows. You are waiting for the rush, right? I stared into his eyes, my voice a little muffled. I didn't hurt her. Wen Lang looked at me and didn't hesitate. I know. A few words expressed his full trust in me, making my heart settle at once. My heartache and touching regained the upper hand, and with a nasal voice, I said, Brother Lang, it's freezing here. As soon as he opened his mouth, tears fell from his eyes. Wen Lang's eyes floated with heartache. He took off his cloak and wrapped me up, pulling me to sit on the edge of the bed. You can see today's situation. They and the Queen Mother are all watching. There's really no way for me to be biased. I placed my hand on his, expressing my understanding. Wen Lang held my cold hand and stretched out his right arm to embrace me, sighing softly. After all, I was negligent and forgot to instruct them to take care of you. I shook my head and smiled. It's nothing, discovery can last at least 2 or 3 days. Wen Lang gently wrenched my body towards him and wiped my tears, speaking with an apologetic voice. You're still blaming me. His hand looked extra warm as it touched my cool face. I raised my eyes and slowly said, No, Brother Ron, I'm not scared. I'm just sorry I wasn't able to keep your flesh and blood, something must have gone wrong somewhere. After a pause, I added, if I felt aggrieved before, how can I blame you when you chose to believe me when all the evidence pointed to me, and I'm truly grateful. Wen Lang was a bit moved. You are, no matter when, I always believe in you. We've known each other since we were young, even without second brother, I wouldn't suspect you because of those women. I was silent for a moment. Brother Ron, what time is it? He said, about midnight. It's so late. I was a little surprised that Wen Lang made a trip over at this hour. How is Qin Wenyi's side doing? Not too good. The imperial doctor said it was a hematochezia after a miscarriage, barely stopped. The fate is uncertain. Wen Lang sighed softly and asked me, tell me, what exactly has happened in the past few days? How did you get caught up in it? And what happened to that dregs of medicine? Chang Yuan brought in a fire pit, removed the cold food from the table and replaced it with some exquisite snacks and dishes, and also brought me warm clothes and blankets. So soon, the small cell was warmed up. Wen Lang led me to sit at the table and urged me to drink some hot soup to warm my body. I detailed to Wen Lang recounted the process during the period, added my analysis and questions. Qin Wenyi from the beginning of pregnancy to the waxing moon has been a deficiency of qi and blood, the New Year's period but suddenly had the symptoms of blood fever, and the onset of rapid, according to reason, the blood fever is not a sudden, especially after the pregnancy, it is even rarer. Huan Pei suspected that some kind of drug should be caused. See that Li Rengui dare not take the blame, the prescription is mild. I asked the Ring Pei in her medicine to add a symptomatic antidote, just want to help her drag to Brother Lang back to the palace, had been greatly improved, to yesterday but deteriorated. The Ring Pei found that she burned incense in the house also has anomalies, the situation is urgent. I risked to give her that bird's nest. Will be himself to the public target. So, it is true that I tampered with her medicine, but the person who wanted to harm her was not me. Qin Wenyi's illness and the true efficacy of that dregs of medicine, I'm sure that the old imperial doctor will know once he tests it. It's just a pity that I went through all the trouble. I lowered my eyes. I'm sorry. Don't tell me you're sorry, it wasn't your responsibility, you've done your best. Wen Lang's face was already indignant. The court judge said today that the hematochezia was a bit abnormal. I didn't put it on my mind at that time, but this time we must find out who committed the murder. I'm sure it won't be easy, I said with a twitch in my heart. Brother Lang cares a lot about Qin Wenyi. Wen Lang looked at me. After all, those are 2 lives, and I'm not heartless, so how can I treat them lightly? I said no more, only saying the last question in my mind. Brother Lang, why is it the heavenly prison, not the cold palace? He was silent for a moment and said, the internal affairs heavenly prison is very close to the Qianyuan palace, and the cold palace is too far away, lest the whip will be too long to take care of you in case of a situation. I froze, sighing that I hadn't thought of this layer, and suddenly thought of a possibility. Brother Lang is afraid that the Empress Dowager will give me death. Seeing Wen Lang's acquiescence, I lowered my head and laughed softly. If that were to happen, it would really be the case that I would die before I could leave, and when I see Brother Chuan, he would laugh at me. Wen Lang stroked my long, loose hair and said emotionally, don't worry, Jiangshan and Yuer, I'll take care of both for second brother. As Wen Lang was leaving, I remembered something. Brother Lang, the people in my palace he nodded, don't worry, I'll arrange it. Nodding my head, I sent him away, and from the second day onwards, I was in a much better situation, and although I was still in prison, it was no longer piercingly cold. Only I can't do anything but wait for the movement outside. I know that Wen Lang put me here is just a stopgap measure, and that Huan Pei's medicine must be fine, so as long as the outside world is busy after these 2 or 3 days, I will be cleared of any wrongdoing. However, the next 5 consecutive days of Wen Lang have no news over, so my heart cannot help but be a little anxious, vaguely feel that there is something wrong. Chapter 33, Your concubine. Sure enough, this day in the afternoon, suddenly had the order of the arraignment. To mention my eunuch is not familiar with the internal affairs officials on him but quite polite, I know in my heart, and do not ask much, to face not hold degrading to the guards on the grounds of begging for a silver hairpin, will be spread out of the long hair simply pulled up. That inner eunuch did bring me to the Rinshō palace, and as soon as I stepped into the main hall, I knelt far away. According to the system of our dynasty, in the main hall of Rinshō palace, except for the empress, who can serve in front of her, the rest of the concubines, without being summoned, can be as close as 1 square meter for those above the 3rd rank, 2 square meters for those above the 5th rank, and the rest have to be outside the 3 square meter area. I am currently wearing the body of the offense, since I have to kneel at the farthest place. Glancing upwards, in addition to the Empress Dowager, there are also Rong Shui, Jing Gui concubine, Lan Jieyu, Yi Wan Yi, all of which are more than 5 levels above me and need to kneel. My servant pays her respects to the Empress Dowager and several of her ladies and masters. The Empress Dowager answered a sentence, both arraignment, naturally will not call up, I will straighten up, quietly kneeling by the door, in front of the front also kneeling in the Imperial Hospital envoys, but do not see that Li Rengui, when Lang is not, the situation makes me a little puzzled. Went to invite the Emperor, will be here in a while. The Empress Dowager's words were said to no one in particular, slightly settling my heart. Soon there will be a pass. When Lang arrived, he hurriedly strides into the temple door, passing me around the obvious pause, the crowd stared, I naturally do not dare to look up at him. When Lang met the Empress Dowager, and exempted a few concubines from the salute, just sat down and then asked, Mother, today this is? The Empress Dowager spoke steadily, her expression was gentle, her tone was unquestionable. Your Majesty, Qin Wanyi's matter has been dragging on for a few days, the entire harem are looking at, today it will be the end of the trial. Although when Lang had objections in his heart, his mouth could only respond. The Empress Dowager turned to the Imperial Hospital judge, Imperial Dr. Jin, you then say something. Jin Yuan made the decree, the first sentence will be shocking, let my heart immediately thumped. Yes, report to the Empress Dowager, the Emperor, the Imperial Hospital 6th grade Dr. Li Rengui due to misdiagnosis and supervision of soups and medicines ineffective, has been ruled to be closed-door meditation for 10 days and expelled from the Imperial Hospital, but today reported that Li Rengui even disappeared. The Empress Dowager and a few concubines obviously already knew the news, only when Lang showed a look of surprise, but did not open his mouth to ask anything. I noticed the word misdiagnosis in the courtyard envoy's mouth and frowned. At this time the Empress Dowager said again, continue. The Golden Court envoy bowed, yes, after the Imperial Hospital to check, Qin Wanyi's soup diet, living things, there is no special abnormality, that the soup is indeed man-made additions, and Jinghe Palace searched in the dregs of the medicine in line with. My heart sank a little bit. Li Rengui disappeared, no abnormalities in the living items, the dregs of the medicine match, and the bowl of bird's nest that can't be denied, this is really going to make me die. I looked upwards and when Lang, also frowning, spoke in a deep voice, are you sure? The court ambassador trembled, busy back, yes, I still have the following information to report. These 2 days I and the 2 court judges carefully examined, that the addition of coriander and half of the lotus seems to be added to the fetus is not easy, but the complementary properly, is to drive away the poison to protect the fetus of the good prescription, and I have recently for the Master Qing's medical treatment of the prescription has the same effect, which can also explain why the Master Qing once body improved a few days is the result of the effect of the medicine. It is the result of that medicinal effect. Seeing the crowd are surprised and do not understand, the hospital ambassador said, Qing Masters some days ago, abnormal fetal phase, after investigation is not due to blood fever, but only shows similar symptoms of blood fever. Li Rengui misdiagnosed as blood fever, the prescription is mild and strange, delayed the Qing Masters of the medical treatment, so that the additive is indeed from the Jinghe Palace, but is not the cause of miscarriage of the Masters of the Qing, but to a certain extent to slow down the disease. When Lang nodded, are you saying that Wanyi's miscarriage did not originate from the soup? Then what was the cause? Courtyard make cautious return, back to the Emperor, Wanyi Master should be in some kind of chronic poison, after taking the medicine, although there is improvement, but the last day of contact with catalytic substances, resulting in poison miscarriage. Rong Shui opened her mouth on the side, meaning obviously, catalytic substances. Didn't Sister Qing not eat on that last day? What catalytic substances would there be? Well, the Empress Dowager understood. Then can the bird's nest be checked? Back to the Empress Dowager, there is nothing left of that bird's nest, and I am unable to check it. After the hospital to exit, I still clutching the heart, my suspicion seems to exclude the majority. In fact, there is still the last of this heavy. If it is confirmed that the bird's nest is to catalyze the poison thing, then my guilt will be even greater. A long time to think about poisoning, sinister and cruel to the people. It is my Muguanyu. Is in a stalemate. Suddenly the eunuchs of the palace of Rensho came to report, Qing Wanyi seeks to see. The few at the top were surprised, and the Empress Dowager frowned slightly. Tell her to come in. Soon I could see a glimpse of a pale blue skirt traveling past, and I could see the weakness of her body by the somewhat buoyant steps. Qing Wanyi walked up just to kneel. The Empress Dowager then sent word, line of honor, how not out of the small month to run out, first sit down. However, Qing Wanyi still trembled and knelt down. Empress Dowager, Your Majesty, I have come specially to report an important matter, and I do not dare to delay for half a moment. Oh. The Empress Dowager had a questioning look on her face, then said, You say. Yes, Qing Wanyi hung her head. Empress Dowager, Your Majesty, since I have been pregnant, I have been careful everywhere and at all times, but I have still lost my child. I don't dare to say that someone has harmed me, but I have the following information to report. She paused and tilted her head sideways towards me as if to look at me. I didn't see her expression and bit my lip. Soon heard her voice, That day, you sister sent Snowbird's nest, although indeed sent to my concubine in front, but my concubine because of the body discomfort, the actual did not eat. At that time, there was just no one else in my house, so Xiaohua did not say so when she reported, resulting in you sister was wronged. I have not been able to get out of bed for the past few days, and only today have I felt better, so I rushed to report. Wen Lang narrowed his eyes, You mean that someone else is responsible for harming you? Qing Wanyi kowtowed, My concubine body has been weak, failed to keep the heir of the emperor only blame my concubine blessed thin, but also please the Empress Dowager Emperor do not investigate further, the harem peace and quiet is most important. The Empress Dowager was very touched, signaled Ziki to help up Qing Wanyi. Wanyi really is a deep sense of justice, suffered this misfortune can still have no hatred in the heart, to the overall situation as a priority, worthy of commendation. The Empress Dowager said looking to Wen Lang which will not understand, immediately spoke, Wanyi lost son can still be sensible, promoted to Ronghua to show commendation, another reward. Stop for a moment, he added, but this matter cannot be indulged without investigation, always have to give the harem an explanation, then by Rong Xiu Yi in Jing Gui concubine common office, as soon as possible to investigate clearly. I will obey the decree, and will do my best to get it done. Rong Xiu Yi took the decree, Your Majesty, Sister Qing is deeply righteous, since Sister Yu has cleared her name, should we give some commendation to compensate? Wen Lang heard quite used, before speaking, the Empress Dowager has said, I can't imagine that Yu Yada's medicine is actually the right thing, we really wronged her, let the child suffer these many days. Saying this, he looked to me, Come, Yui come to the front, I'm sorry for the commission. I followed my words and took a few steps forward, still kneeling down. I don't dare to be condescending, at that time I did have some ill-considered points and acted recklessly, please forgive the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. The Empress Dowager smiled, What is your crime? See people in distress boldly help each other, when wronged also do not defend, really a rare good child, is really a model of the harem. The latter this is obviously said to Wen Lang, the rest of the crowd have shocked, the harem model 4 words will not easily describe the concubines, so that must be to give me a promotion. Wen Lang laughed, Mother said extremely right, you child gentle and virtuous, good body on the will, when the promotion of noble concubine, living in the main seat of the Jinghe Palace. The word out, the crowd were all in an uproar, eyes stared at me over, the harem in the promotion of 3 consecutive precedents, but are the low part of the concubines have merit and expectancy, I won Yi's identity directly into the concubines in the main position, but never before. The compensation for these days of prison is not too high, the face of all the people on the side of the wrath of the color. I subconsciously want to refuse, raised my head, just want to open my mouth. I saw Wen Lang fixedly look at me. The Empress Dowager on the side of the expression is not abnormal, as usual, loving, dignified. There is even a touch of a smile hanging on the face. I don't know what is the inside story of this nerd, in spite of the doubt, or bowed his head and thanked the grace. Soon the Empress Dowager told all the people to disperse, leaving me alone. The palace maids waiting in the hall also retired, only Sister Sun stood aside. You are. The Empress Dowager called me in this manner again, causing my heart to tremble as I looked to her. Empress Dowager, look calm. I also do not ask you how to find Shihua Palace. That pregnancy has problems, you have your own way. I only ask you, why do you want to intervene? That this has nothing to do with you. Yes, why am I asking for trouble like this? Dropping my eyes, I sighed in my heart, because I know that the Emperor, he cares. The Empress Dowager raised her eyebrows and looked deeply at me for a long time before she said, if you store this heart, it is very good. Not in vain the Emperor, he believes in you and defends you. My heart moved. This kind of thing is endless in the palace. Every time a few people died in vain, a few people get away with it. If it is not Wen Lang in front of the Empress Dowager for me to guarantee, how can I be so easy to get rid of the crime, but also promoted to the noble concubine? I am reckless, I am really terrified. The Empress Dowager lightly hummed, you know fear is good, what you think in your heart. I do not want to go deeper, only believe that you are an understanding person, bear the main position, in the future will be more when dedicated to serve the Emperor, maintain the royal peace, do not call again, I am disappointed. I hastened to answer with a respectful voice, and the Empress Dowager added, this time the matter ends here, don't mention it any more, you go.